You are a fan of horse racing, you should be here.
We've got plenty of Breeders' Cup contenders waiting to go on the track.
We are inside the horse van. These are the filly contingent.
We're so fortunate to see so many of these horses in the Breeders' Cup.
He floats. He's very, very good. He's very light on his feet. Just an outstanding work.
What the starting gate is to horse racing in the afternoon, the gap is to morning training hours. That's where all the horses gather, and then they head out to the racetrack for their preparations and anticipation of a championship moment. And then there are the crowds. People are arriving in Southern California for the 40th edition of the Breeders' Cup. It is quite a feel here at Santa Anita as they host the Breeders' Cup for a record 11th time. Welcome to a breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. I'm Todd Schrupp on our set just off the paddock. One of my first jobs in racing was at Canterbury Downs in Shakopee, Minnesota. I was in the information crew, so I had to answer questions about where's the bathroom, where's a good food stand. But one of the other responsibilities was to pick up the jockeys that were coming from out of town to ride in the stakes races. And I will remember to this day, one of those assignments was picking up the great Pat Day and Jorge Velasquez. There was something special about top jockeys coming to your town. Now take that moment, coming to your racetrack are all the best horses in the world, the best jockeys in the world, the best trainers. That's what the Breeders' Cup is. That's why it's so special. They are all gathered in one place for 2 days, and people have flown around the world to be here at Santa Anita to watch them at the top of their craft. And joining me on our set is Kaiten Bradar. Kaiten, so we're coming to this final breakfast at the Breeders' Cup show. No one has workouts per se, but they're still out there going through their training regimens. But how does the barn change? Is it like a sports team where all of a sudden when you get closer to game time, it gets a little bit quieter, gets a little bit more intense?
Absolutely. I would think that it's a lot like what happens in a locker room where there's a lot of great energy going on. People are excited, happy just to be in the experience in the moment. And then all of a sudden, there's that window of time before the game, before you walk out there where everybody gets their game face on. And I think that's what's probably happening right now. It's nervous energy. There is excitement, but the trainers especially and those who work closest to the horses will try to temper that energy and keep things calm as they possibly can for the benefit of their equine athletes. And you know, what a privilege it is for us
That's right.
to get to observe that and watch the experiences and the ranges of emotion that take place over the next 48 hours or so.
Tomorrow is the first of 14 championship races. It will be Future Stars Friday here at Santa Anita. 5 Breeders' Cup Championship races leading to Saturday with a spectacular 9 Breeders' Cup Championship races. Speaking of spectacular, Michelle Yu has been phenomenal all week long. She's with us here at Santa Anita. So is Rishi Prasad and Joaquin Jaime, but let's start with you.
Thanks, Todd. I am back here at the starting gate where we have seen so much drama happen this week, notably around Yushpa Tesoro. Looking at the list of the internationals and what they're supposed to do today, he is not expected to revisit the starting gate. We did see him out galloping already, but I do have some big notable names to be coming up here in the next 30 minutes or so. Mostadef and Songline are both scheduled to visit the starting gate, so we'll stand by. We've already seen probably 10 Breeders' Cup horses this morning, headlined by Gunite, and right now Brendan Walsh just had Austere out here. Joaquin.
Hey, Michelle, good morning to you. So we know coming into the Breeders' Cup this year that we have 4 returning Breeders' Cup winners from a year ago. But one thing I noticed when looking at the past performances is that there are quite a few horses that have narrowly missed winning a Breeders' Cup race that are coming in here to Santa Anita. 7, as a matter of fact, that I counted. For example, Dr. Shivel, he just missed by a nose winning the Breeders' Cup Sprint at Del Mar a couple years ago. We have Clairiere. Believe it or not, she's ahead and 3/4 of a length away from going for 3 consecutive wins in the Breeders' Cup Distaff this year. Warlight Gata, she missed by a half length in the Juvenile Turf at Del Mar a few years ago. And Cheryl Spite, he was second in the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile a year ago behind Modern Games. Finished second, but only missed by 3/4 of a length at 55-1. So we've caught up with a few of these connections. Some of them we have not. For those connections that we have not talked to just yet, we'll try to catch up with them here at Clocker's Corner. For now, we send you over to Rishi Prasad. Rishi, good morning.
Joaquin, good morning to you. Good morning to everyone. Yes, the last couple of days have been really interesting down at the quarantine barn where I'm currently stationed. Obviously, yesterday we had the news from the internationals that Algiers misses out in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and news emerged overnight that Bradsell, who was going to run for Archie Watson, Luke Morris was flying over, ARC-winning jockey last year in Alpinista. He was going to come over and take the ride on Bradsell. Well, disappointing news that the horse has been forced to scratch. I'm trying to find out the specific reasons for why Bradsell has had to miss the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. That's disappointing, but obviously the big players are now definitely in town. Just arriving a few moments ago, Aiden O'Brien, Frankie Dettori, Ryan Moore, John Gosden, Charlie Appleby, with horses already out on the track. So I'll be catching up with whoever I can to add a little bit more information as to what's going on. Interestingly enough, a lot of the Coolmore team have turned up wearing their Justify jackets today. Of course, Justify is the sire of their superstar 2-year-old, City of Troy, who maybe next year he'll be here at the Breeders' Cup. Back to you guys.
Caden, it's really remarkable when you look at our last 2 Triple Crown winners, American Pharaoh and Justify. They've turned out to be sought after internationally as great grass sires.
You know, I think a great horse is a great horse, and obviously some specialize as far as surfaces, and their offspring do the same. But I think the truest sign of greatness is the ability to just instill that highest competitive level in the offspring, regardless of the surface, regardless of the circumstances. And that's definitely what we're seeing with those sires.
Yeah, neither of those horses ever raced on the grass, but they can produce some serious grass runners, you'll see here at the Breeders' Cup. Let's get out on to the track with the Moonlight is out there preparing for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. That is part, as we said, of 9 championship races on Saturday.
She's trained by Charlie Appleby, who has been oddly missing from most of the conversations and the buzz that we have for this year's Breeders' Cup. Is from a limited number of horses over the last few years, there has not been any more dominant stable that's shipped in. I think this filly is real interesting, and you actually might get a good price in the wagering. She was second at Woodbine in the EP Taylor to Feb Rover. This will be her second start back. William Buick aboard. And you deserve a price because she will have to improve off her most recent form to get in the winner's circle. But how many times, Todd, have we focused on a few key European or international invaders and completely forgotten about some of the others who've been knocking on the door, but who might just flourish in this environment?
And she was last in the EP Taylor as far as her most recent start. Ended up finishing second there, kind of repeating a pattern where he brought her over to the States last year. The Belmont Oaks was second, and then got a win in the Saratoga Oaks Invitational. There is Live in the Dream, and Live in the Dream is waiting to move to the starting gate here, preparing for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. We know this horse is quick out of the gates, Michelle, so I'm assuming this will be a quick session at the starting gate.
Well, Todd, we'll find out. Live in the Dream has been standing back here, patient as could be. I have to say, the first day I saw this horse this week, he was very, very hot, was very foamy. In subsequent days, he has gotten absolutely calm as a cucumber. Let's see if we can holler. Are you guys going to go out the front of the gate? Not sure. Okay. So we're actually waiting for word from Adam West to see what they're going to do right now. So that's why Live in the Dream is going to be back here, just waiting words if they're going to go out the front of the gate or if they're going to stand and come back out, Todd. We'll keep you updated live. We've got a couple more Breeders' Cup horses that just walked up right here, and Songline is on her way over. So you guys will have to check back with me really shortly as soon as we start to get a little bit more action.
And living the dream, Kate, and we've been talking about his effort at Keeneland when he came stateside in the Grade 2 Woodford. Obviously, you were there all meeting long. He really surprised people with how fast he could be in the early stages, because that's going to be so important with the 5-furlong distance of this year's Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
So it was interesting because right prior to the race, there was discussion that the strategy was going to be to take the lead and see how far it will carry you. But I don't think anybody anticipated it would be as fast. That was the fastest opening quarter, I want to say, on any surface, dirt or turf, for any horse, 20 4/5 of a second. Then 43 3 for the half mile. There was really very little hope that he was going to be able to be around at the end, especially given the fact that it was 5.5 furlongs. And we've heard Adam West noting that this is absolutely a 5-furlong horse. So I thought that was actually a remarkable performance given the pace last time.
Michelle has the trainer of Living the Dream.
Adam, can we bother you? What's going to be the plan today?
We're just following regulations that we need to go in the stalls.
So just going to stand, not going to go out the front?
We'll go out the front because he's never gone out the back in his life. So.
Very fair enough. Okay, so the plan here then is for Living the Dream to stand in the gate and then break out the front of the stalls, because it's not their habit to back out. We've watched numerous U.S. horses come in, they stand, and they back out regularly. So this is not something this horse is accustomed to. So out the front, they will go. You heard Adam refer to the regulations. They want all of these horses to come and visit the starting gate. That way the starting crew can actually have an idea of what the horse needs. I'll just sneak over here real quick and steal this little list of theirs. So they actually keep a list of every horse that visits the starting gate, and they write notes about them. So they're able to refer to this back on race day with what the horse might need or what it did in the starting gate. So every single horse can be prepared for here. We've got a lot of action going on right now. That's Society behind me backing out. So Scott Blasi just had her stand in the gate and come back out. We still have Living the Dream. And guys, I'm fangirling just a little bit right now because King of Steel just walked up here. It's the first time I've got to see him since he's come to Santa Anita. So we'll watch all of these Breeders' Cup preparations going on here at the gate until you guys get bored of me.
Never bored of you.
Not gonna happen.
I want to watch your reality show. But you see Adam West standing there in the hoodie as he had just spoken to Michelle Yu. Did I get the impression right? He's kind of irritated by all this?
You know what? First of all, we talked about that window of time where things become a little bit more somber, a little bit more serious.
Right.
And so I understand the irritation, but at the same time, it's consistent amongst all that they go to the gate as far as those horses that the assistant starters and the starter is not familiar with. And they know that this is a different process for these horses. So from the starter's perspective and the racing operations in general, you don't want to leave anything to chance, that everything is going to go as it's supposed to at the gate. But I will say, you have to keep in mind that for any of the European or international invaders, this is a different process than anything they've done.
But why is backing out such a big deal?
Because they just don't do that over there. When they, as he said, he's never done it in his life. The way we prepare horses here in the United States, it's commonplace, especially early on. When we're first teaching horses to get out of the gate, you always go forward. You never go back. You usually have the doors open completely. You walk the horse through back and forth, and the assistant starter will stand with the horse the first few times so that they just get comfortable even without the doors shut. Then it's a process. You shut the doors, you teach them how to come out the front, and then slowly you teach them to back out as well so that they do whatever you want them to do. That's not the process generally that's used overseas.
Well, Adam West certainly has a lot of instructions for his Gallop lad here, Michelle.
Guys, I'm down here right now, and we were talking about some of the things the gate crew has to learn about these horses. And Roger Varian's down here. He's actually brought his own hood for his horse, and he has the assistant starter over here who's in charge in the mornings, and they're telling them how to use the hood, at what point they want it to go on, and at what point they want it to go off. So you'll see them taking it right now. Maybe we can come over here and does it feel different than another hood?
Similar, but it's nice. It's a nice one. Very nice. Yeah.
It's custom. I like that. So at what point is the hood supposed to go on, and when does it come off?
It depends. Sometimes they want him to pull it off right when the gates open. Them jockeys just rip it out and throw it out the back, but that's what he wants to do.
All right, so we'll be watching, you guys. This is all the preparations that go on for Breeders' Cup. That was a very nice hood. A lot of times they can be made out of like a nylon material, which could be a little noisy as well. This one appeared to be a really nice fleece with a thicker nylon handle. Like they said, the rider can grab it and rip it off. So we're going to see him approaching over here, and we'll wait and see when it's going to go on.
There's a famous story about the legendary John Longden, the jockey who was the first to set the North American record for most wins. They put a blindfold on his horse, forgot to take it off, and so he was struggling to take it off out of the starting gate. But I didn't know that jockeys still had that responsibility with something like that to take it off as the gates open.
I believe it was Ascot, Royal Ascot, that I saw at least one horse where that happened. And the timing is everything, right? From the perspective, it just adds to another layer to what you have to be thinking about and focusing on as you come in. And that's another one of those areas where we are different. In this country, you would never see that. It's just not done. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It's just not a process that we've done. Now, it's interesting because I feel like sometimes racing's a little slow to change in this country as far as adapting. In terms of equipment, phases, ways of doing the same thing that everybody does over and over. But there are some elements of European racing that we've seen incorporated into North American racing. And he came out beautifully there. For what it's worth, that the hood, it'll be interesting to see if that ever gets adopted. If King of Steel were to win, or whoever has the hood on would win, then I think you might see some trainers in this country looking into or investigating the idea of utilizing a hood in this manner. Blanket around the horse's hindquarters going into the gate as a security blanket, and then coming out, the horse literally breaks out from underneath the blanket. It's something that happened a lot more in Europe before we started incorporating it here and there with some of our U.S. horses.
So there's King of Steel. He's gone into the gate for the schooling session. You can clearly see the hood that Michelle showed us with the fluorescent green on there. Acting up a little bit here, but again, this is why he's probably wearing a hood.
And this is also why they're practicing it and bringing him over here 2 days before his big day, because you want to get all the idiosyncrasies out of the way. You want the assistant starters to learn the tendencies of the horse. And now the hood came off there, and you saw him kind of sit down a little bit, but not, it was just kind of the sudden movement of it coming off. It probably came off in a different manner than it will in the race, obviously. When the race happens, the adrenaline is pumping so much for the horse that everything is pretty smooth and seamless, hopefully, if the timing is right as to taking it off. But when they're going slowly, just standing there and have time to think about it, they may react just a little differently.
King of Steel, winner of the Champion Stakes last time out at Ascot, and now here. You know, you talk about his quick turnaround. He just raced on October 21st.
He's a magnificent looking horse. He really is. And I was impressed. I was looking at through social media. There's actually on X a picture of him with, I believe it's the trainer's very young daughter, sitting on him like he's a pony, stable pony. I mean, they put her on and they took a picture, and he was as calm as a kitten. I absolutely adored that picture, and if his demeanor is anything like that, it's sort of reminiscent of American Pharaoh, who was so kind and yet such a phenomenal racehorse.
King of Steel, one of your favorites for the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf. The biggest race of the 2 days is the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. We're looking at Zandon for trainer Chad Brown out on the track right now. We anticipate, we think it will be a very good pace with Saudi Crown and Arabian Night, at least two of those horses contesting the pace in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. I keep finding myself liking Zandon as a long shot possibility.
Absolutely, and if you watch him train the last few days especially, I think you like him a little bit more. He's just a beautiful horse and is carrying nice flesh. He has stood up to the rigors of training through the Triple Crown and then rebounding now as a 4-year-old, and he's full of himself, but it's controlled energy. Just looks magnificent. I know Chad has been very, very happy with the way he's coming into this race. And you know, he has an advantage over some of the horses as far as this 1.25 mile distance is concerned, because as a 3-year-old, he was a little bit fast-tracked to be in the Kentucky Derby, and he was only beaten 1.5 lengths in that very oddly run race that, of course, was won by Rich Strike, a huge surprise to everyone. But for all intents and purposes, Zandon, I thought, ran just an incredible race in the Derby. So I don't have a doubt about him at the 1.25 miles. It's just whether he can star or whether he is a supporting character in this cast.
Yeah, it would take him quite some time to get his next win after that very good effort, the third in the Kentucky Derby you talked about. It wouldn't happen until October 1st of this year, his most recent start when he took the Grade 2 Woodward. He did face White Abarrio in the Whitney, who is now expected to be one of the favorites in this race. He was second, beaten 6 1/4 by White Abarrio, who was in a different stratosphere that day. But this is one of those horses that, Kate, and you were talking about, and you mentioned it with the Europeans, that are always there or thereabouts, and then all of a sudden it comes together on the biggest day and they win at an incredible price. Zandon could be the American version of that for sure.
White Abarrio in the Whitney was 6+ lengths better than Zandon. The question is, at the 1.25 miles and at this point in the year, does Zandon improve? Does White Abarrio continue to maintain or improve as well? But if you believe that it's possible that White Abarrio doesn't quite run back to that race, then you have to love Zandon.
The Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Cody's Wish is obviously the horse that this race goes through, but I keep hearing the name Zozos throughout the week. We've been showing you Zozos throughout the week. You can also see that's Andy Biancone in the middle of her other job as she's aboard Dill Pickle. She'll be joining us a little bit later in the show, but right now she's helping out with Zozos for trainer Brad Cox out of the main track. The theory goes, if Cody's Wish is going to get beat, it's somebody going gate to wire or hanging on with the early pace and holding off Cody's Wish in his charge late. Zozos seems to be that horse that fits that mold.
Right, he's got the speed, and in some respects may well be controlling speed. That's going to be, I don't think it's a secret. Brad Cox didn't want to reveal his game plan with Saudi Crown, but I don't think it's a secret what the game plan will be with Zozos. It's just go to the front and try to make them catch you. Now, does he go fast on the front and make them run early? Does he slow things down and keep a controlled pace throughout? And can he be as effective in that cruising mode on the front around 2 turns as he has been around 1? Distance is relative to the configuration of the track. So he won the ACAC very easily. He's going in the right direction. He's trained beautifully, both at Churchill Downs and here. I don't know the answer to that. You have to take a leap of faith one way or the other.
And he is part of that 3-year-old crop that was in that Rich Strike Kentucky Derby. Zandon is still around, and he'll be in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. Zozos, who was a non-factor that year except for racing up near the pace early on, will now try and put it together for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Zozos, a serious threat to Cody's Wish on Saturday. Let's go back to Bucco, who is on Future Stars Friday. And Bucco, we got a chance to see on the grass last time out, and she is pointing towards the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf.
Can I just say that,
go ahead.
That this is the race, in my opinion, that I have not a clue about?
I know, and you know, consistently each year, I love Future Stars Friday, and these are the races I love. Because if you do have an opinion, literally, the favorite could be 9-2 in the race.
You know, an interesting fact about this race, while it is turf and you think of Europeans, there's only been 3 Europeans in the history of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf that have won, and there's never been a horse that was based in California.
Huh.
I thought that was very interesting. Perhaps Euros have one of their better chances today. They have some really, not as many, but some very nice horses. Bucco is probably going to be good odds, despite the fact that she won the Jessamine very, very easily. She seems adaptable to a pace scenario, and she's won over a variety of turf courses. So I think that works very much in her favor. Phil Bauer's having the year of his life, and we started this conversation talking about Justify. Bucco is by Justify, who I think Bucco in particular has come along in a very quick period of time. I thought going from the maiden win to the win in the Jessamine, she took a huge step forward. And you can see her physically, she's a little above the curve, I think, as far as size and scope and kind of maturity overall. She she breezed fine at Churchill. You know, with turf horses, it's very hard to get a line on them because a lot of them are turf horses because they don't necessarily do their best work on the dirt.
And Martin Garcia has been aboard her in her last 2 wins. He used to be based in Southern California, so he'll know the trip here better than anybody. Let's go back to Saturday. Here's a horse that's going to get a lot of attention in the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf. It is Mustadaf.
You know, getting a chance to see him, King of Steel, I mean, these are our superstars. These are the biggest names in the sport today. And Mustadaf, coming off 2 consecutive Group 1 wins at Royal Ascot and at York in the Juddmonte International, makes him one of the best turf horses in the world, if not the best.
And it was Rishi who said yesterday, this is as deep of a Longines Breeders' Cup Turf that he's seen in quite some time. And you'd have to agree when we were showing you King of Steel, as you mentioned, Mustadaf. And those 2 horses won't even be the favorite in here. I think that's obviously going to be Auguste Rodin, who ultimately will be the favorite. But again, you're going to get a fair price on a horse like Mustadaf or anybody you want in here, speaking to the depth of every Breeders' Cup race, but particularly this one, the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf. And then there is the question that, you know, who is going to adapt to this turf course and the type of ground that is obviously going to be very, very firm compared to what they're used to.
You know, I think that we usually focus that conversation on the European horses. I think we have to focus that conversation on every competitor in turf races here because horses are coming in from so many different types of turf courses, but in particular in the United States and in Canada, there was a lot of rain this year.
Yeah, that's right.
So most of the courses were not on the firm side, and I think this is a very different situation that they're going to be contending with on Friday and Saturday. So you know, maybe I'm overthinking it, and good horses find a way to win regardless of the condition.
There's going to be a different kind of rain for horse players. It's going to be rain and money. It's the 2 best days to play in horse racing. The Breeders' Cup World Thoroughbred Championships this Friday and Saturday, and FanDuel Racing has you covered. New customers can bet the Breeders' Cup with a no-sweat win bet up to $200 on FanDuel Racing. That's up to $200 back if you don't win your first single horse win bet. Just place your first win bet on a single horse in any race and get up to $200 back as a racing bonus if you don't win. Go to FanDuel Racing for details, and once you're signed up, play the Breeders' Cup with FanDuel Racing and get win bet insurance on all races at Santa Anita, and that's starting today. The 2 championship days of racing at Santa Anita are Friday, Saturday, but they're also racing later this afternoon, a Thursday card, and win bet insurance is available for you. We'll be back with more Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by Fasig, Tipton, and Windstar, right after this.
Hey, so I found a betting system that's really working great for me.
So did I. What's yours?
I set up an hour-a-week time limit on FanDuel. I can also set up wager limits, so I only bet what I can afford, and betting stays fun.
Right.
So what's your system?
What's that?
Your system. What's your system? What is that?
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours.
FanDuel Casino has your chance at the #1 feeling, winning, which ranks even higher than the 18th best feeling, saving a kid from a well. 59 years later. Find the #1 feeling winning on FanDuel Casino Reward Machine. Free to play every day with a chance at a $2,000 top prize.
Trade to win the Rico Woodbine Mile.
She's going to do it. Simple Verse has won the Ledger.
Snake Nick Spear and Asheen Murphy get through and have won.
It's getting really tight. The star of the season, drawing line.
The purple cap, Kamiko the far side of him. Kamiko's won. The other in line, Mongostina has just won it with Mosse.
Ocean Road after going to Vegas. Ocean Road.
It is going to be Caravel to win the turf sprint.
FanDuel's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup is presented by WinStar Farm and by Phasic Tipton.
And FanDuel is very pleased to be associated once again with one of the great races over the years in the Breeders' Cup. That is the Mile on the Grass. The FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile presented by PDJF. Master of the Seas figures to be a factor in this race. Master of the Seas, as we were talking about with Charlie Appleby, a lot of times he'll come over with a start before the Breeders' Cup in North America. And for Master of the Seas, he has had a couple of starts here stateside, the Woodbine Mile, and then most recently at Keeneland, second beating a nose to Up to the Mark, who many people think is going to be a factor in the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf. So no doubt about Master of the Seas' ability and the company that he's kept.
Master of the Seas was very impressive when I saw him in the Woodbine Mile. That was coming off a layoff. He hadn't raced since a victory at Ascot in July, and he was much the best over Sherrill's Fight and Lucky Score. I thought he was brilliantly handled that day by William Buick. I don't think James Doyle did anything wrong, but there is something about the rhythm and the chemistry between Buick, and who is, of course, one of the greats in the world, and Master of the Seas that I think will be on display again in the Breeders' Cup that could make the difference. He's a little bit of a tricky horse to ride.
Rishi, the expectations for trainer Charlie Appleby are almost in another stratosphere now. It's almost unrealistic. We just expect him to show up here and win a couple of Breeders' Cup races. Is it going to be like that this year?
It's been a very different season for Charlie Appleby, certainly domestically in the UK this year. Last year, obviously very good. The year before, lots of top-class horses, the likes of Modern Games, Adayar, Hurricane Lane, Native Trail, Caribus, loads of top-class horses. But unfortunately, the well's been a little bit dry in the last 12 months. He had Modern Games win the Lockinge back in the UK in May, and then he didn't have a Group 1 winner in the UK till Ancient Wisdom won in the final Group 1 of the season at Doncaster in November. So by his very high standards, not quite there. However, on the international stage, he still continues to perform with a great deal of credit, and Master of the Seas has helped add to that good record this year. The only thing I'd say about Master of the Seas is, obviously, when you look at his very best form, it's obviously not up there with the likes of Modern Games or indeed some of his other good milers in the last 12 to 18 months, the likes of Caribus and Native Trail. But Master of the Seas is still capable of some high-class form. Overall, you look at the components into his chances and you think, well, he's not a Modern Games, he's got stall 14, so there are a couple of question marks against him that maybe suggest he's got a tough task on his hands. Against all of that is what you say about Charlie Appleby, particularly his record here at the Breeders' Cup. He's very selective, as we know, about the horses that he brings, and that in itself requires respect. So not going to rule him out. However, I think for a European win, a British win, then more in the camp of Mostadaf in the Breeders' Cup Turf. I love the fact that he's just himself wherever he goes. He's very edgy, full of himself in the mornings, very enthusiastic, effervescent, keen to get on with things, and very male in his demeanor. He's interested in everything around him and he wants to show them who's boss. I like the fact that his form this season has been brilliant on fast ground. He's going to get fast ground here on Saturday in the Breeders' Cup Turf. I'm not too concerned about the 1.5 mile distance, even though his very best form this season has been over 10 furlongs, 1.25 miles, because he has won over 1.5 miles. And in fact, they considered him, or they ran him in the Arc last year. John Gosden would not have done that unless he believed that the distance wouldn't have been an issue for him. It was the ground that day more than anything else that really sucked the chances out of his Arc bid. So I think Mostadaf has got a huge chance coming up in the Breeders' Cup Turf. You just look at the way that he has progressed over the last 12 months. You know, he won in Saudi Arabia, he travelled very kindly, he quickened away from a decent field, but the form even better in the Prince of Wales at Royal Ascot, and then when beating Nashua and Paddington in the Juddmonte International. I think Mostadaf is just about the leading contender for Europe in the Breeders' Cup Turf.
And certainly looking that part out on the turf course this morning. And if you've been with us throughout the week, you know this turf course is very different in the mornings versus the afternoon, because in the mornings, the sun hidden for a good amount of time, and that San Gabriel mountain range that you see casts a long shadow, not only from the foothill communities right below it, but right all the way to Santa Anita. And so this turf course that has a lot of give in the mornings will be very, very different in the afternoon when the sun rises and dries it all out.
I don't know if I've ever seen a more effortless stride.
I know, it's gorgeous.
In watching him, that is almost, if you had a movie and wanted to display what the perfect stride looked like on a racehorse, you would use that footage that we just saw. I would say he is flourishing here, and boy, what an incredible looking athlete he is.
Let's turn our attention back to the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile, presented by the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund. Here's a horse we haven't really seen that much on the show, so we're getting a good look at her now. It is the 3-year-old daughter of Frankel. That is Kalina, who has been based in France, most recently a winner at Longchamp of the Prix de la Forêt, Group 1 company there. Was an upset winner that day. That was part of the ARC festivities, Rishi. Is this a 3-year-old filly that is ready to come to America and take on this kind of field?
I'd say so, Todd. You look at the record of French horses in the Breeders' Cup Mile, and that in itself is enough to consider her chances. But the good thing is that we often say in Europe that when a filly starts blossoming at the end of the season, you want to back her, you want to follow her until you know that that blossoming is over and done with. And it seems to me that having had a little bit of a mid-season dip, she's really found her stride towards the back end of the season. And that win in the Prix de la Forêt over Kinross was very, very good. At one moment in that race, I thought that Kinross was going to come through and win. Frankie Dettori perhaps didn't get the cleanest runs on Kinross, but Kalina had travelled equally as well as Kinross. And you remember the Breeders' Cup Mile last year with Kinross, with a better run, he probably would have beaten Modern Games. We're talking about two very high-class horses, and Kalina is right in the mix with horses like that. And that run in the Forêt was over 7 furlongs. She's got form over a mile, so she's got that little bit of speed that you'd also want here at Santa Anita. And I like the fact, because there was a time during the season you thought maybe she goes best with a bit of cut in the ground, but actually I like the fact that at the end of the season, on the faster ground at Longchamp on Arc Weekend, she showed her versatility for that. She, I think, is a big player, and when I'm looking at the field for the Breeders' Cup Mile, I'm thinking that it might be the fillies that dominate, the 3-year-old fillies. Kalina and Morge would be the other main contender, but Kalina hugely in the mix for that race.
Kate, and this was brought up by Rishi when we were talking about Master of the Seas. He draws the far outside barrier, post 14. Kalina's not exactly close to the rail at post 11. What about those outside post positions? If you want to look at Songline and 10 and the field the rest of the way out, some of the best horses are on the outside of this mile. Is that a problem?
It does concern me a little bit. I think that there are added challenges to trying to work out a trip, but running style of the individual probably comes into play. And with Kalina, it looks as if she's the type of horse that does her best running when she can get covered up and sit back and then come on late, versus when she gets involved in the early pace. So I think that maybe the post position won't be quite as big of a factor necessarily, but then it all depends on how everybody breaks around you, right?
Can I take this in a moment? I'm a fan. We're all fans here. And I just want to emphasize how great the Breeders' Cup is. Again, everybody loves when the big names come to your local racetrack. So imagine being a Southern California racing fan, and you can just drive over here in the mornings, and fans are lined up along here, a lot of people from out of town, and so they look at the saddle towels and they just wait for the horses to go by. They've been doing that before the sun rose.
You know, we have the opportunity to watch the sunrise as the horses are working out as a special occasion. They do it every single day, wherever they are in the world. This is just a day at the office, but it's one of the most important days at the office they'll ever have.
I'm so excited to see people coming in for this big event, and there will be more coming in tonight, and then tomorrow, the first of 2 championship days. We're taking you right into the paddock there where these schooling sessions are going on, and look at all the cameras. Everyone gets to see their thoroughbred heroes and heroines. There is nothing like the Breeders' Cup. Again, the best of the best from around the world in one location for 2 days. Speaking of best, King of Steel looked phenomenal schooling at the gate and went through what they had planned for with the hood. That went off easily. He backed out of the gate as well. And now he is out on the turf course. King of Steel, one of your main contenders for the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf.
I'm just enjoying the opportunity, the rare opportunity to get to see these horses. We talk about, Michelle mentioned fangirl. I mean, you are a fangirl. You're just in awe of getting to see your heroes. Having watched them on television is not quite the same as having the opportunity to see them in the flesh. And this is the next best thing. To get this close-up view of them in their training is a sneak peek. As opposed to what we see in the afternoon. But I mentioned his demeanor in that picture that was posted on social media that I saw was so amazing, because he seems like a horse who is very focused on his work and is a very sort of serious, if you will, type of racehorse, and yet he looked so gentle and so laid back. Maybe it's the difference between being in your home and being on stage, but at the same time, I think that impressed me very much about King of Steel.
Okay, I want to go to something you mentioned earlier. You saw a photo on social media. Here's what you're talking about. I just, again, you've been around horses all your life. You've ridden them as a young girl. But when you're talking about a thoroughbred racehorse who is in the middle of their career, what you're seeing is truly rare.
I mean, you wouldn't have seen this with Justified. That's all I'm saying. You just, a horse is en route to one of his biggest races, and you see a picture like this. And now I do believe that's at his yard, and so he's a little bit calmer, you know, and more laid back, but boy, amazing.
Well, looking at this picture, Rishi, King of Steel is docile, but what about this question, having raced October 21st and now coming back in that short amount of time, a 2-week time to win the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf? Is it a concern?
I have to say, Todd, all along I've felt it's a concern. Just coming here was, I think, a huge challenge for King of Steel, because how hard the race was when he won at Ascot on Champions Day. It was deep ground. He had to work really hard. He was at the back of the field. Horses weren't making ground that day. The pace bias was always being on the pace that day. And unfortunately, he was compromised by how the race unfolded in the early part of the contest. And then he had to work really hard to get back into it. And I thought that would be enough for him for the season. However, given all the evidence that we're seeing this week about the way he's taken his training, Roger Varian's confidence in the fact that he's given him all the right signals, and what you're just, we're joking and laughing, and we are obviously looking and thinking what a docile horse he is. Perhaps it is just his demeanor, the fact that he can take these tough challenges in his stride, because he's just a big, gentle giant. And what we would consider a really tough challenge for the average thoroughbred, or even the better than average thoroughbred, probably water off a duck's back for a horse that's 570 kilos. I mean, he's enormous, 17 hands. He is a big, strong horse. Perhaps we've underestimated his constitution, and it's possible that King of Steel is actually thriving at this time of the season. I'm scared of him now. Michelle?
I'm just trying to figure out, Rishi, how many pounds 570 kilos is right now. And according to Google, it's 1,256 pounds. That's actually very, very large. If you guys watch our racing at Santa Anita, we do weigh the horses before every race, and you'll be able to see not many horses are going to clock in at that particular weight. You referred earlier to King of Steel coming and visiting the starting gate and getting put into his hood. Roger Varian was here, did speak to the head assistant starter out here, since Jay Slender is not out this morning, and talked exactly what they wanted to happen. First, I want to show you a regular hood. This is what we generally use at Santa Anita. It's just really an old set of blinkers that's been covered over. It doesn't have the Velcro, so you put it on, and when the horse comes out, you chuck it off. But this is what King of Steel came with. A beautiful custom-made hood. It is like a really heavy fleece, and it has a handle. So when it goes on the horse's head like this, his ears are going to come out right here. It's a lot bigger, and it also is a lot wider, so it's not confining in any way. And this also gives the rider the ability to hold on to this and pull it off if that's what he's supposed to do. When he schooled in the gate here, it was actually very cool. They put the hood on beforehand. I gave him a couple of circles while Roger Varian told them, keep it it nice and cool. He was telling the rider the whole time, nice and easy, guys, slowly, slowly. Because as soon as they put it on, you could see King of Steel's demeanor change just a little bit. Now, they put him in the gate and had him stand with the hood on. Instead of opening the front of the gate, they backed him out. And as soon as they pulled the hood off, he literally did this. He thought he was going to break. So the key of the hood there was really nice. And this is going to be staying right here at the starting gate. So they'll have it all ready for race day. We're going to be back here. Horses are going to be making their way over to the starting gate again. I'm still waiting for Mosadef and Songline before I hit the backside. We'll check right back in on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
This is a Kentucky Thoroughbred. This is a Kentucky-built Powerfoil industrial fan. Like a Thoroughbred, it too delivers unrivaled performance. And while they both run with purpose and pride, this one also runs to keep your workforce feeling cool and comfortable. Powerfoil, our best-selling big fan hands down. BigFans.com. Comfort without compromise.
Welcome back to the Sportsbook Draft, where FanDuel's pick is in.
With the first pick in the 2023 Sportsbook Draft, FanDuel selects horse racing.
Brilliant pick, as FanDuel becomes the first and only sportsbook app where you can bet on horse racing.
Just a savvy move by a savvy franchise. New customers get a no-sweat bet on the Breeders' Cup up to $200.
It's like they know each other.
What do you think Rob's saying to him right now?
Probably something about oats.
Looking to give your handicapping game a sharper focus? RaceLens is the most in-depth product in horse racing, with unique features found nowhere else. Customized PPs, summary and individual research, handicapping angles and backtesting, true odds predictive analysis, and pace projection. With innovative analytics powered by data from Equibase, it will change the way you follow horse racing and take your game to the next level. RaceLens, bringing clarity to handicapping. Learn more at equibase.com/racelens.
40 years ago, we were founded for thoroughbred racing. For 40 years, we've set the stage for the world to come and race. We've dedicated our lives to our sport, to witness the unforgettable, to reach the mountaintop, to win a championship that defines a legacy. Our love, our dedication, our passion, it runs deep.
I'm Greg, I'm 68 years old. I do motivational speaking in addition to the substitute teaching. I honestly feel that that's my calling, to give back to younger people. I think most adults will start realizing that they don't recall things as quickly as they used to, or they don't remember things as vividly as they once did. I've been taking Prevagen for about 3 years now. People say to me periodically, man, you got a memory like an elephant. It's really, really helped me tremendously.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
Chase the day with Day Chaser Cocktails, the official ready-to-drink canned cocktail of Breeders' Cup.
I always said there was something about Zenyatta. It's like she's taken another level of evolution to communicate with us. She just had something. The way she looked at you in the eye was different. She's highly intelligent. I think that's what allowed her to bond with certain people, especially Mike Smith.
Zenyatta's still dancing her way to the racetrack.
I just loved everything about her and the way she pranced, of course.
Fields sent on their way in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Zenyatta is dead last. Zenyatta's dead last early.
She'd goof around, on the back stretch, racing, looking around, not really into it. And when she decided to go, it was magic.
Zenyatta has a lot of ground to make up. Zenyatta, if she wins this, she'll be a super horse. She's starting to pick them off, though. Zenyatta going to hook to the outside. Meanwhile, it's Colonel John Summerbird in the red cap. And Zenyatta's come to the outside.
just so loud, so exciting. And I think sometimes people really do get behind a horse, not just the bet they won. She had to win because she wanted to win.
Bo Derek recounting one of the greatest memories in the history of the Breeders' Cup, Zenyatta beating the boys in the 2009 Breeders' Cup Classic. We were privileged to be there, and I have to say, when someone asked me what was the greatest day you've ever had at the racetrack, talking about the sport itself, without question, it was Zenyatta's win. And I've been there for American Pharoah's Triple Crown. I've been there when Deep Impact came back to Japan to an adoring crowd. They were all great moments. But Zenyatta stood amongst all of them, above all of them. There was such a joy after her win that it propelled everyone out of the grandstand, and you walked away feeling great about this sport and loving this horse.
Todd, I had the honor of actually being a part of the broadcast and was on horseback during that race, and also her next, which, though not that storybook ending that everybody was hoping for as far as the Classic was concerned, still one of the pivotal moments for me in terms of Breeders' Cup history. And having watched her entire career and the arc of her career and being there for that day to see the joy that a horse can bring to so many people, and the camaraderie and community that can happen both in victory and in defeat was something that I'll never forget, and kind of those pivotal memories that are etched in your mind that you never forget.
It seems like yesterday. It's hard to believe that it was 14 years ago. When you come to Santa Anita, go to Monument Garden over here by the fountain. That's where the Zenyatta statue is, and many horse racing fans will do that, paying homage and taking a picture with her. Michelle Yu catching up with the man who knew Zenyatta best.
So excited to be joined by one of my idols, Mike Smith. When I was a little girl, I had a poster of you in my room. Did you know that?
And I had hair probably and a mustache then. I don't think you'd have
No
one.
mustache. There was no mustache. I have a quiz question for you.
Sure.
Who is the winningest jockey in all the Breeders' Cup?
Man, I have to think about that for a little bit. Let me see. Me?
Yes. I'm so glad that you got that right. I want to go back to some of your Breeders' Cup wins, especially right here at Santa Anita. I feel like you've had some memorable ones.
You know, the two that will always stand out of mine, of course, Zenyatta will always stand out. Her beating the boys here was just incredible, coming from last, running by all of them and just nailing them at the wire. And, of course, Trevor Dimmon's call that he did, it was legendary call. And I say this all the time, it was the day the ground shook in California, and it wasn't because of an earthquake, it was her fans just going crazy. The ground literally was shaking. That's how many people were going nuts. And then, of course, the Great Arrogate, when he beat California Chrome here, was an incredible race. It was really tactical kind of race. I was trying to hide the whole time behind Chrome and just peeking out at different times, playing picky-boo, and we popped out at the right time, man.
All right, I want to go back to the Zenyatta because you mentioned the race call. When you're riding, did you hear the race call? This is unbelievable.
99 times out of 100, you don't hear it. Yeah. But I heard it because I literally turned into a fan. Once I got her clear at the 8th pole and got her to the outside, I knew she was going to run by, and I just was in awe. I couldn't believe what I was being a part of. And then I actually heard, this is and the Craig just went crazy. I'm just glad I stayed on past the wire, man.
I want to go back to your first Breeders' Cup win. What was your first one?
Lure.
That was your first one.
Great Lure, man. He'll always hold a special place in my heart. He was just incredible. Not only my first one, I believe he was my second one as well, because he went back-to-back Breeders' Cup miles, breaking from the outside post here at Santa Anita the second time, where everyone said it would be impossible. And in 3 jumps, he went from the 12 hole to the 1. He was there that fast and in front and just ran incredible that day.
Did you think after you won that, I'm done, like I might, that'll be great for my memory, and if I never win another one, it's okay?
No, I just thought, man, this one's gonna really kick me forward and get me going, and it does. Races like that really catapult a rider's career. They put you in the limelight. Everyone gets to see it. They know you've been there. Not only were you there, you won. You accomplished it, so they know that you can handle the pressure, and it really does. It does wonders for your career.
What's your most surprising Breeders' Cup win?
Most surprising, I can tell you the most surprising that I was a part of that I took off of.
Okay.
And that was Archon when he was here at 99-1. I had to call on him, and I could ride him in the last minute. Mr. Jerkins decided to run in Devil Is Due in there, who who was a really good horse, and decided that, went to Andre and asked if it was okay if I remove myself. He said, well, if you can get me a top rider, it'd be okay. And Bailey just happened to be open. I should have got the 25%.
I was going to ask, did you get the agent fee?
I called him up, yeah, and I said, Jerry, would you be in? Look, I know he's a long shot, but he goes, no, I'll ride for Andre, yeah. What's his name? I don't know his name. We didn't know his name or anything. Jerry wound up riding him and just rode a masterful race on him, and that horse ran a big race, and he wound up winning at 99-1, and it could have been me.
It was actually 133-1, but the tote board couldn't show it.
I'm not sure I'd have rode him as well as Jerry did, though. He rode him just beautiful that day, and he ran amazing, and so that was something I was part of that I didn't.
At any point, did he go by you in the race, and you looked over and you were like, damn?
Yeah, I saw him just getting through down on the fence the whole way around there. I said, and I didn't know who it was. Right. I said, surely that's not him. And then we stood up, and I'm here, and Jerry's coming back, and I said, you got to be kidding me. And he's like, thank you, buddy, thank you. Thank you, man. Take me to dinner or something.
All right, so Mike Smith, some great memories here, and we know his next career, future Jocks agent.
I didn't know that part of the story. In fact, as part of the 40 Moments with the 40th edition of the Breeders' Cup coming up, Jerry Bailey recounted for us our Kong's win. That detail was not in there about Mike Smith, but this detail is incredible to me. Mike Smith is 58 years old, and here he is still competing like he's 28.
He and I have followed the same path for a very, very, very long time, although as far as wins are concerned, he's gone a little bit beyond me in that respect. But certainly one of the people that I think encapsulates the Breeders' Cup as far as having witnessed it and been a part of it for such an extended period of time. And, it is remarkable when you think about that many victories. There are people who are incredible at their gift in this game who will not have one Breeders' Cup win, much less many and the most of any jockey in the history. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
And there's a group of jockeys, you want to call them elder statesmen, you want to call them the best of their generation, but you're talking about John Velasquez, you're talking about Frankie Dettori, you're talking about Javier Castellano, you're talking about Mike Smith. They have a bond and a respect wherever they go, and it is fun to watch when they're in the same place, and they are going to be here at the Breeders' Cup, riding the best in the world. It is a phenomenal 2 days coming up. We'll be back with more breakfast at the Breeders' Cup right after this.
With NetJets, travel will always be personal. We do everything it takes to make every flight exceptional. Every single detail of your experience is personalized, just for you. As our standard is not just to meet our definition of perfection, it's to exceed yours.
Hey, so I found a betting system that's really working great for me.
So did I. What's yours?
I set up an hour-a-week time limit on FanDuel. I can also set up wager limits, so I only bet what I can afford, and betting stays fun.
Right.
So what's your system?
What's that?
Your system. What's your system? What is that?
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours. With FanDuel, every night is a watch party. New customers bet $5 to get $150 bonus if your team wins. Bet all the stars with all your friends and tell them that they get 3 months of NBA League Pass on us with any $5 bet. Only on FanDuel. New customers bet $5 get $150 bonus if your team wins, plus NBA League Pass on us.
As horse racing's greatest take the stage at the Breeders' Cup, we're working to provide an ecosystem of care to keep these athletes safe. With comprehensive veterinary examinations starting weeks before entry, up until they leave the starting gate. With extensive racing, surface testing, and measurement protocols. New national uniform regulation and rigorous enforcement under the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority. And with the addition of advanced technology and new diagnostic tools, we're taking great and positive strides. But we are committed to doing much more. So no matter who wears the crown, safety runs first at the Breeders' Cup. To learn more, visit breederscup.com/safety.
Kate, yesterday for the media and other participants, there was a special meeting about this very topic. What are some of the things that you took away from it?
Well, it was an opportunity really to hear all the different protocol that were going into place, as well as the various players in this, because, you know, I think people are under the assumption that it's just, okay, veterinarians do the checks and then that's all there is to it. But there's so many layers as to how these processes are implemented, what happens in general with the daily racing product that might be different with the Breeders' Cup. But for the most part, the opportunity to get to just hear about both the testing procedures, the integrity procedures that are in place, as well as the safety measures, the improvements that have been made generally here at Santa Anita, we've talked about all week long, but and actually that's been an ongoing process with the various diagnostic tools that are available and the number of checks that are going on with the horses. But I think what's most amazing to me when you stop and sit down and look at it, most of these horses will have been seen even just over the last week by about 20 to 25 different times with eyes outside of their own people who are keeping an eye on them as well. So it's a check that's in place in a lot of different places, on the racetrack, back at the barns, in the daily inspection process, and then ongoing every time the horse is out of its stall.
Yeah, the greatest victory at events like this is a safe running of the Breeders' Cup, and all of the measures have been taken to do that to the best of everyone's ability. Looking forward to Friday, 5 Breeders' Cup Championship races, and on Saturday, 9 Breeders' Cup Championship races, an expanded card with other stakes races surrounding them. And out onto the track comes Aiden O'Brien's horses. They always make an impression out there. Everyone trying to get video for what we don't see here in the States. You talked about the routines in the mornings here in the United States. What you're watching from Aiden O'Brien is vastly different from anything you'll ever see over here.
You know, I think some might say now you're just showing off, right? But it is quite a show to see these horses in single file order. We've talked about it a lot, but there is a method to the madness. There's a specific reason that Broom leads the pack and has every day. Broom, at the age of 7, is one of the most, if not the most experienced, seasoned veterans in the group. He sets the rhythm, the tempo, and the example for everybody behind him that follows. And sometimes I've heard people think that it's ability. The best horse is in the front.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought initially.
But that's not always the case. In general, the 2-year-olds are going to be toward the back of the group because they're going to watch their elders and see what they're supposed to do. Horses by nature are herd animals, so the fact that you're able to get them in this controlled environment in a single file order is just remarkable and a real sight to behold. And I kind of wonder if I were Broom, I would feel pretty proud of myself to be out front of that group all the time. And he is a seasoned veteran.
And Rishi, it's quite an honor to first of all be hired by Aiden O'Brien and then get the call to come over here, you know, talking about the men and women who are aboard these horses in this fabulous exhibition we get to see each morning.
Absolutely right, Todd. I actually spoke to a couple of them yesterday. I spoke to Rachel Richardson and Dean Gallagher, who have been regulars with the Aiden O'Brien team, especially on their trips over to the Breeders' Cup. They were talking as well, not only the honour of being part of the Coolmore battalions, the Ballydwell battalions that come out onto the track, but they're also talking about the buzz that's involved being part of that team. They were saying that the first morning they clear quarantine and they have to come out as a big group together. They get the opportunity to do that, and they know that the press have arrived, and there's lots of photographers and journalists wanting to get words with Aiden O'Brien, wanting to see the horses up close. They say they get a little bit of butterflies in their tummies when they're just getting ready to get on board their horses to come out. They love the buzz of it, and obviously the opportunity to sit on some very good horses. Rachel Richardson, who I mentioned, she rides Auguste Rodin. She's ridden him all through the season. When I spoke to her yesterday, she was pretty confident that we're going to see the real Auguste Rodin. I say Augustus because Aiden occasionally calls him Augustus. I think it's a nickname more than anything else. But Auguste Rodin has benefited from her partnership throughout the season. And, of course, he's put behind him 2 very disappointing runs to actually win some very good races, as we know, the Derby, the Irish Derby, and the Irish Champion Stakes, which, in fairness, after a disappointing run when he looked perhaps maybe that things had gone awry in the King George, to come back and win the Irish Champion Stakes, that shows he's got some mettle. So respect his chances enormously in that very deep Breeders' Cup turf.
Kate Rishi touches on something that we try to emphasize. You know, a lot of times in the mornings, you're not seeing the rider who's going to be on that horse in the afternoon, but that person who's on in the morning, absolutely the race can be won or lost with their efforts.
And they have a very intimate relationship with the horse. In the case of Aiden's Army, those riders actually are oftentimes those grooming and taking care of the horse on the ground as well as on its back. So it's an even more complex and close relationship, I think. But for all the exercise riders here, they put everything they have into it. In many instances, they are regular exercise riders for specific horses. So they ride this train, win or lose, the same as everyone else that's connected to the horse. And it is a real bond.
Michelle?
Well, guys, we just watched Big Evs load into the starting gate and break out. But the horse we've been waiting for most to death is here right now. John Gosden is standing by, talking to Jim Crowley, telling him what to do. He said, Jim, if you want to, you're welcome to take him out the front of the gate. Maybe take him about a furlong or so. And so we have all these guys right now being told what's going on. John said he's good for him to jump out the front. About a furlong, 1/8 of a mile, before he's going to pull him up. So we'll see Mostadef here, coming out of the starting gate under the watchful eye of John Gosden. There he goes. Heading right for Aiden's Army. And you see they all held up right there because when there's a horse coming out of the gate, we generally holler down the racetrack to let them know one's coming out, and the outrider over here will hold up traffic so it's a nice, clean go. Excellent break right there. Everyone's fans of John Gosden's over here. Can I interrupt you, Dean, real quick? John, were you happy with that?
Yeah, good. It's always fun to get your slot at the gate here. Great sight, the whole of Ballydwell trotting past. We nearly went through the middle of them.
Appreciate the time for you spending with us this morning.
Thank you.
We'll hand it back upstairs to you guys.
John Gosden, in fact, they were doing a story, some of the overseas outlets, about how Santa Anita really launched him before he went back to England. And so this is a place he's always very, very comfortable with, and always love to catch up with him and get some word. And he has made it clear he points towards the Breeders' Cup. This is not an afterthought, and he looks for horses specifically that will thrive here in America. And as you watch Mostadef, you can see why.
Oh, what a picture he is, and how nice to have him get the opportunity to stand at the gate, us watch that it all goes according to plan. He, as a son of Frankel, has kind of a heavy responsibility and mantle that he's carrying here. Frankel considered one of the great racehorses of all time to come over or to run overseas, and this guy could come very close in terms of reputation, particularly if he's successful in the Breeders' Cup.
What a back-to-back races. The Longines Breeders' Cup Turf is always the next to last race before the biggest race, the Classic. That'll be the case again this year. Yeah, the schedule's a little bit different with a couple of Breeders' Cup races after the Classic, but it is going to be back-to-back 10th in both these races. And so for the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, Arabian Night is out on the track just a little while ago. And Arabian Night coming off his win where he took on older horses in the FanDuel Pacific Classic. And then Bob Baffert decided, all right, we're going to wait. That was back on September 2nd and has now essentially will have had over 60 days off going in to the Classic. But they already checked off one box. They can handle the 1.25 miles as they proved last out.
You can see he's feeling very good now. He's fresh, and he's kind of giving his rider a little bit of a hard time there. They finally got the lead change. The rider was kind of insistent that I realize you would like to do what you want to do, but you're going to have to do what I want you to do, which is mind your manners, switch onto that right leg. That right front leg is extending, kind of leading through the lane and the straightaways. And you can also see as his head is popping up here and there that that's just him being a bit sassy and trying to argue with the rider. He'd like to do a little bit more. This is only 2 days away. Now we're 48 hours out from his biggest test. So he's been honed to be on the muscle, to be ready to come out of the starting gate, and he is a speed horse. So a front runner sometimes can be a little bit higher energy in the morning too than a horse that, say, takes some time to get going. But I think this is just his demeanor too. I think he's just a high energy horse, the son of Uncle Mo, looking very good on the track, very fresh, I should say, and feeling very sharp. And that's, you want that controlled energy because you want him sharp, but at the same time you also want him settled when he goes into the starting gate, especially from that outside, toward the outside post position 12. He needs to break cleanly and take advantage of it.
What Din Tai Fung is to dumplings, Andy Biancone is to breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
Hi, Todd. Hi, Caden. We're standing by with Brad Cox trainee, Matt Araya, who's going to be running in the filly and mare sprint. She's our Grade 1 Derby City Distaff winner, finished third in the Ballerina most recently. But right now we're just standing, letting her soak everything in, getting her some pets. She's very relaxed, really even-tempered. We're going to jog all the way around to the 16th pole, so get her a nice warm-up, and then she will go on and gallop, and I'll pick her up and take her home.
And we keep talking about her as a serious threat, Caden, in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint at a price. And the reason she's a price is because she doesn't string a bunch of wins together. We talked about the Derby City Distaff on the Kentucky Derby undercard. She beat Goodnight Olive, who's the defending champion in this race. So that already tells you she's got the race in her. Are you seeing from her in her lead up to this race that she'll run that race?
I am, because I think that there's been some fine tuning, and I think the fact that she had some time since Saratoga to regroup off a disappointing effort on a track that I don't think she cared for, which was a sloppy race or muddy racetrack in the Ballerina. Her head is bowed, her chin to her chest. Now, in part, that's because she's equipped with what we call draw reins. You can see that there is an extra strap of leather. It's the rein going from the rider's hands through the bit and then attached to the side. Because she's doing this jogging and then just light galloping, it's another means of controlling the horse and keep her balanced. She likes the draw rein. She performs really nicely in the morning with it and goes about her business, and she's beautiful.
Michelle?
Guys, I'm back here right now. Inspiral's just going into the gate with Frankie Dettori aboard. Him and John kind of had a conversation about, what do you want to do, Frankie? And Frankie said he'd rather go out alone than jump with another horse. We just watched Mostadef come out of the gate, and we're going to be having Inspiral coming out the front of the gate as well. In addition, we had other schoolers out here. Who's Your Filly, Gimme the Beat Boys, Crimson Advocate, and Lindy all came out to school at the gate. But here we go, Inspiral out the front. Definitely not as sharp a way as Mostadef, but nice and easily, still paying attention, and Frankie looks like he's happy. So there we go, the two Gosden horses with big front of the gate moves, and we've been waiting for Songline. Songline is here, you guys, so we've been waiting for her to come out. She's been out on the track for about 45 minutes already, and this will be her bit of gate schooling. Obviously, we have seen some drama from the Japanese gate schoolers this week. We will see if Songline is going to be nice and perfect or if she is going to be a handful at all. She's already gone out and done her bit of galloping. You can see her blowing just slightly here. And we did get to see her walking earlier. I did not get to see her doing any kind of galloping. She is equipped here with a flare strip, which you can see on the tip of her nose. Normally we use those just for a race day scenario, but if you're preparing for a big day like the Breeders' Cup, no harm in using it on a daily basis. There's another Breeders' Cup horse schooling in the gate. I wasn't able to see who it was, but I think Songline might be waiting for that horse to leave. We'll send it back to you for a second, Todd, if you'd like, and then I'll holler at you when she's going to go in the gate.
We'll wait for you to holler, Michelle. And one thing she pointed out when Inspiral came out, wasn't the quickest on her feet, but Caton, these are turf horses that are schooling on the dirt track out of the gate.
Right, and it's also the morning, and it's a different environment, and the goal is different. You want them to pop out of there running in the afternoon, but in the morning, you'd rather it was a little controlled, because you heard Frankie saying to John Gosden that he would prefer to go by himself, not with another horse in there. To me, that's a sign that Frankie's concerned that if she was with another horse, she might get a little too keen. She might become very competitive with that other horse. So because the goal was very controlled out of the gate, and just to see that she does it smoothly without incident, doesn't break off balance or off stride, bump against the side of the gate, make a little left hand or right hand turn, all those things are the most important aspects of that schooling process, not how quickly they get away from the gate.
And watching Songline, who is one of your expected favorites for the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile presented by the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund. Japan coming with a lot of quality this year. They obviously bring over horses with chances. They had what many would say the breakthrough at the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar, but they will not surprise anyone this time around, Michelle.
All right, Todd, that's right. It wouldn't be a surprise. I think that the Japanese horses have been the talk of the town all week. You see Songline walked in here ultra professionally, didn't give any kind of hesitation. Everybody watching her pretty closely. We have connections from the horse as well as the whole gate crew here. The riders looking around, giving her pats on her back and on her butt, which is typical. And it looks like she's in the stall with either pads or blankets on. The stall's closed. Pads. Gate crew telling me there are pads in this stall. So we attempted to use those with Ushba Tesoro, and he didn't like it, but Songline had no problem with the pads here, and she is standing pretty well. She's not super square down below, but mentally she seems like she's composed. You can see if you look down below, one of her legs is cocked. You obviously wouldn't want to start her like that because it wouldn't give you an equal opportunity as far as starting goes, because you'd have to have that split second where you put both those feet down before propelling forward. But at least she's in there and she's not too wiggly. They are tucking her blanket, her quarter sheet up underneath right now. To me, that appears like they're going to let her go out the front, but we'll wait and see what officially they decide to do, but that's generally what you do if you're going to come out the front of the gate. I don't see Kate Hunter anywhere here to get a real inquiry, so this is just going to be by what we see visually. And, oh, he's backing out. All right, Songline did opt to come back out instead of going forward. But she was very good in there. Walked in nicely. No problems for Songline. She gets an A at the gate. 3 witches now for Safi Joseph. Coming up, she's going to go postward in the filly and mare sprint. She brings him back-to-back wins, including a victory in the Princess Rooney. And she is all business. No problems there. Now, behind the gate, you guys, we still have Broom circling. We saw Aiden's whole contingent come over here yesterday, but Broom, the only one making it over here today. I wasn't able to see the gate schooling yesterday, so I'm not sure if Broom wasn't satisfactory, if they just want something different from him. But Broom is back here, separated from the Army. I wonder if they're a little lost because he is the leader generally of that group, Todd.
Michelle Yu taking you into the action as only she can. We've been watching these schooling sessions in the morning, and she mentioned a Broom, the 7-year-old who led out the Aiden O'Brien horses out at the front of the pack there, and Broom out right now behind the starting gate. But Michelle brought up something interesting, Kate, and she was talking about Songline and how she was standing in the gate. What's most important here in these gate schooling sessions? Is it mentally where they're at and how they're handling it, or is it physically how they're standing in that gate?
Well, it's a little bit of both, because some horses will actually have a habit of picture a person that in maybe a stressful situation will go back and forth with their weight or gets very fidgety, right?
Okay, Mike Joyce.
So you don't want fidgety in the gate. You'd prefer just sitting very calmly, just taking it all in so that you can then, when the time comes, go forward in an orderly fashion. But so it's twofold. It's definitely the physical, but the mental is just as important because it leads and drives the physical.
Once again, back to Michelle Yu at the gate.
All right, guys, they did put Songline back in, and they actually tried her in the stall without pads. So the first time they went in with the pads, she was fine. They put her back in without. She was actually very good there as well. Let's see if we can get an official word on which they preferred over here. I'm going to be a bug. Was there a preference to the pads, no pads?
They just wanted to see if it would be better with or without. And
okay.
It didn't matter either way.
And like you said, didn't matter. She was class act either way, so they have some options there on race day, Todd.
And as Michelle alluded to with Ushba Tesoro, it was an issue. Even when they used the pads, he wasn't perfect, but he did get better. And Simon made the comment when he was with us the other morning, he'd keep sending Ushba Tesoro back to the gate. Can you overdo it, though?
So this is where the finesse of training, which is as much creativity as it is science, it's a real art to balance it. So where some trainers would say that the way to go is to just keep going and going and going until you get it right, others would counter that what you do is get it acceptable and then leave it alone and hope that that's the way we go forward, because you always risk, if you go back and do, as you say, overdo it a little bit, maybe one too many times is the time that the horse then decides to not have a good day. Some school of thought would be to just leave it with, okay, they've cleared me, we kind of got what we wanted, and now we'll just hope for the best come Breeders' Cup time.
And when you look at Songline and watch how long she's out on the track, how long she stayed behind the gate, and even watching her school here, it's become very apparent. You talk about the different approaches by trainers across the world. For the Japanese connections, they seem to really take their time with everything. We were hearing from Adam West with Living the Dream. He couldn't get out there soon enough. It's like, let's get this over with. But the Japanese connections have a very different approach, and that is take as much time as you need.
Well, and I think that this is what they do at home, too. We saw it at Triple Crown races when individuals have come over from Japan. They are out of their stalls for maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours if you combine the time after the work is done. It's just a different process. That's not to say that one is right and one is wrong. I will say the facilities dictate what you're able to do. If you don't have the space to be able to walk a horse all over the grounds, then maybe you do things a little bit differently.
And to be on cone and Dill Pickle out on the track with Matarea.
Todd, me, Kelvin, Matarea, Dill Pickle just pulled up from her gallop. She was excellent. Kelvin says this is one of his favorite rides in the morning, so she can be a little bit keen, a little bit strong, but that's why she wears a pair of draw reins, as you can see, and those draw reins really just help her to use her back effectively, use her hind end, instead of grabbing the bit and fighting the rider. The draw reins add a bit of leverage, so instead of a direct line of contact from the rein to your hand, it's a loose kind of contact. So they pull, their head goes down, and as a rider, if you can just kind of have that balance, that happy medium where you're not cranking their head down, but you can squeeze them with your legs into your hand with those draw reins, you can get them to be very, very soft, very relaxed, and using themselves correctly, Todd.
And watching Matarea getting ready to get back to the barn for trainer Brad Cox, who's got several shots over the course of 2 days. Some huge chances to walk away here with multiple wins at the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, I think that this is arguably the strongest contingent of horses from top to bottom. He's had isolated individuals who kind of stood out. You think of Nick Sko, you think of Monomoy Girl, but this season from top to bottom, I think in every category he's got horses that you can make a very strong case for.
Yeah, I think there's even going to be horses that will surprise him and maybe jump up and win in spots that he didn't expect, and Matarea is a great example of that. And Andy Biancone wearing a jockey camera, so she's able to take you up close to the action on the racetrack and taking you up close with Matarea There was that beautiful shot yesterday and the day before where Andy was along the outside rail when Aiden O'Brien's horses came by, and it was like watching a flyby on camera of some of the best horses in the world going by. Our technology certainly taking you as close as possible. Even if you were here, you wouldn't be able to experience some of the things you're seeing on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. Speaking of Aiden O'Brien and his horses out on the track, there they are making their way to the front part, to the front stretch here at Santa Anita. As you can see, some of the areas that have been set up for hospitality for the 2 championship days of racing. That's going to be a real good spot right there.
You can tell that it's a warmer day overall because you don't see as many half sheets or those blankets that covered their hindquarters as you have in the days leading up to this afternoon. It's warmed up a little bit, so you don't see them used as much. You know, it dawned on me yesterday when we were talking about that part of the reason that they use them, I would think, and we don't, is because they are out of their stall after their exercise for so much longer. So a horse that maybe has worked up a sweat while they're cooling down and walking back to the barn before they're having an opportunity to be bathed or groomed, you wouldn't want them to be cold when they're not doing the high energy exercise. So the blanket kind of offers that insulation and keeps them from getting cold after they've gotten so warm so suddenly. But we don't have as much need for it because our horses go back to the barn a lot more quickly.
Yeah, and you know, as far as the temperature, it heats up pretty quick. We start out at about 54 degrees here when this Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup show starts at 7 a.m. By the time we get done at 10 a.m., we have risen about 14 degrees since then, headed past 70. But we see now the Aiden O'Brien horses turn around and start to go our way here around the track.
You know, it only took me about 30 years to figure that out about the half sheets while I was watching yesterday. And I'm struck by the fact that this game can teach you something new every day.
I agree. Well, look, Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, for those who've been watching for the week, you know this, and we appreciate you reaching out with your kind comments on social media. But I can just tell you, sitting here, it is comfortable knowing that I've got such experts like Caden, like Simon, like Rishi, like Andy, like Michelle. I learn something from all of you each and every day, and I hope everyone else out there has been doing the same. We've been following In Italian and her mornings here at Santa Anita. The Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf, interesting task for her. She's the horse to catch, but can she see out the 1.25 miles on the lead?
You know, I don't think it's the question of the distance. I think it's the question of the distance against this group of horses that I'm wondering about. But what a story it would be. She has come close. She was second in last year's Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf at Keeneland, which was 1 3/16 miles. Now we go the 1.25 miles. She led that day until the very end. In fact, opened up by a couple of lengths until the very latest stages of the race before Tuesday caught her in the end. Keep in mind, the turf races were dominated by the European horses. So I thought that was really a very good showing in retrospect. And I mean, I don't know if you can say she's better than she was last year, but I think you can say she's as good as she was last year. In my opinion, she seems to be physically doing very, very well. Her second in the First Lady behind Gina Romantica, some would term a disappointment because she was the beaten favorite, but in my opinion, she ran credibly because it wasn't what you would consider a speed favoring course, and she just about got the job done off a layoff.
Kate, you brought up that First Lady win by Gina Romantica. Sometimes when you have a horse like In Italian, the heavy favorite who gets beat, we keep talking about, well, why did she get beat? Well, what about the performance by Gina Romantica? She had a very nice win. She goes a different direction for trainer Chad Brown. She ends up in the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile presented by PDJF. It was, you'd have to say, her lifetime best in the First Lady. It was her second Group 1 win, but it was her best performance. Is that race good enough to be competitive in this one?
Competitive, I would say, but whether it means she can win, that's another story, because now we're talking about some of the best
Songline,
milers in the world.
Winner,
yeah, and I think the quality of competition besides we're going from fillies and mares, restricted competition in that respect to open competition, both gender. Gina Romantica, I think, let me put it this way, I think both are incredibly talented horses. I think that Chad Brown is in his element in choosing which spot for which horse. But I also think that Gina Romantica might have the tougher task. That's not to say that an Italian has an easy time of it, because she definitely doesn't. But if I would probably favor In Italian in her spot.
I agree with you.
Versus Gina Romantica in hers as a win candidate.
The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. I got word that Alex Bregman and family got into town last night, so they're probably out at the track somewhere this morning. They'll have no-name Mets.
They're at the barn, I can tell you right now.
Oh, yeah, they love it.
They'll be watching every moment with these horses.
Here's a look at Starlust, one of the horses who will be taking on no-name Mets for Bregman Family Racing. We'll be back with more Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by Phasig, Tipton, and Windstar, right after this.
Trade Storm to win the Rico Woodbine Mile. She's going to do it. Simple Verse has won the Ledger.
Snake Neck Spear and Sheen Murphy get through and have won.
It's getting really tight. The star of the season, drawing line.
The purple cap, Kamiko the far side of him. Kamiko's won. The other in line, Mongostina has just won it with Mosse.
Ocean Road after going to Vegas. Ocean Road.
It is going to be Caravel to win the turf sprint.
Garbage time. That phrase never sounded quite right, because no part of football is meaningless. So while some folks see garbage, FanDuel sees treasure. We see spreads to cover, overs to hit, and chances to live bet from the first down to the final whistle. So don't just watch football this season, cherish it.
Bet $5, get $150 bonus if your team wins, plus a profit boost every single day. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
FanDuel Casino has your chance at the #1 feeling, winning, which ranks even higher than the 18th best feeling, saving a kid from a well. 59 years later. New players get 50 chances at winning with your first deposit, plus get up to $1,000 back.
"40 years ago, we were founded for thoroughbred racing. For 40 years, we've set the stage for the world to come and race. We've dedicated our lives to our sport, to witness the unforgettable, to reach the mountaintop, to win a championship that defines a legacy. Our love, our dedication, our passion, it runs deep.
FanDuel's Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup is presented by Windstar Farm and by Phasig Tipton.
Well, it's great to catch up with a friendly British face, and it's Mick Appleby making a first visit to Santa Anita for Big Evs in the Juvenile Turf Sprint. First of all, Mick, how are you feeling, and how was the trip over, and what's Santa Anita like for you?
I'm feeling tired. Yeah, no, I had a good trip over. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've literally just arrived, so I've not really seen a lot yet.
Okay, what have been the reports so far the week for you about Big Evs?
Yeah, he's been doing really well. And Fred's been really happy with him on the track. Tom had a sit on him yesterday, and he was really pleased with him, so all going well.
Well, I've been chatting to Tara and one or two others during the week. Spoke to Tom yesterday about his preparation. They're all very excited about him. Just tell me a little bit about the secrets of why Big Evs has had such a good season to this point so far. Is it as simple as the fact that he is very, very fast?
Yeah. It had nothing to do with me. Yeah, no, he's just got so much natural speed. That's the thing about him. I mean, and his gate speed's been really good. And, I mean, he can keep it going as well.
Gate speed, obviously, in Europe is one thing, but gate speed out here is different. You're confident that he can match the best of the Americans out of the gates and hold his position?
I'm hoping so. I mean, he's very quick out. I mean, I think if he's as quick as he's in the UK, he should be thereabouts.
And what have been the details of the preparation back home to getting ready for this unique challenge of the 5 furlongs round the bend?
Yes, I mean, he's worked at Civil a few times. Obviously, we borrowed the bell off Adam and we use that. I don't think it makes much difference to him, really, the bell. But, I mean, obviously, it's all down to him on the day. Hopefully, he gets out and can get in front.
And just for you, Mick, obviously the stable quality getting better for year after year. What does it mean to you to have a Breeders' Cup runner and to be here competing with such a live chance?
Yeah, no, I mean, it means everything. I mean, it's good for the old yard and the old team. I mean, it gives everybody a buzz. And it makes it all worth it, really. I mean, it's good to have good horses and go to some nice places with them.
And confident at all about his chances?
I'm never confident. Well, I mean, he's going there with a life chance. So hopefully, win, lose or draw, we'll enjoy it.
Well, he's had a great season already so far. Hopefully, there's more to come. Thank you.
Hopefully. Thanks.
Cheers. Good luck.
Cheers. Cheers. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Rishi. And we're talking about thoroughbreds on the track, but also a big conversation has to be thoroughbreds after their racetrack careers. We have been so fortunate this week to catch up with several old Breeders' Cup runners who are currently ponies here at the racetrack. Let's take a look at some of the retired Racehorse Project horses, and we'll come back with a special guest.
So we're here at the Retired Racehorse Project in Lexington, Kentucky. And the Retired Racehorse Project is a market-based approach to aftercare. It's showcasing how amazing these thoroughbreds are in everything that they can do. It's really important for First Racing, FanDuel TV, and the Breeders' Cup to support aftercare, whether they were competitive on the racetrack or whether they weren't competitive on the racetrack. They're now here on a level playing field, competing against one another. And the makeover itself is actually just increasing demand for these retired racehorses.
This is Red King, was racing last October. He was a stallion in December. And so he had kind of culture shock transitioning. And then he just took to the second career like it was nothing. He absolutely loves it. He loves the challenge of learning new things.
It's really interesting to be at this show and see all these thoroughbreds competing in dressage, show jumping, competitive trail. There's mock fox hunts. There's freestyle competitions.
I'm always looking for horses that are going to make field hunters. And I'm the current owner of Arklow. Obviously, he's a very, very classy horse. Any horse that wins $3 million, I mean, that goes without saying. Everything about him has been just totally uncomplicated. And I think this horse is going to make a superb field hunter.
When you're on a thoroughbred, they just give it their all, and they have the biggest hearts. They never quit. You know, they can be tricky, but once you get into them and they trust you, they'll do anything for you.
It is a competition. There's over $100,000 in prizes and money to be won, but I get the feeling that getting your thoroughbred to the makeover is winning in itself.
So the RP has always been on my bucket list. I've never had the horse I wanted to do it with until we got the Black Album. And to be competing in it, it does mean a lot. And it's very exciting to be in it with such a great horse I've had such a long relationship with.
As much as he was as a good racehorse, he seems to be a pretty talented doing other stuff. He's some big ability over the jump. I thought it was really fun to watch from where I'm standing. It's a big plus for us as a trainer. We know they have a future where we don't have to worry about it.
And the winner is from Field Hunters, number 110, Arklow, ridden by Gina Gans.
It's huge. I mean, it just goes to show you that these horses obviously have a tremendous amount of talent after the racetrack and can excel in other things other than running fast around an oval. So, you know, it's very important that we continue to press forward with aftercare and things such as that.
It's really important to show how much we really care about the thoroughbreds and how we really want them to find a soft place to land after they're done giving us all that they can in their race careers. And to see these horses, some were racing just a few months ago, and now they're coming back and competing in a completely different discipline. It just speaks volumes to what the thoroughbred really is and how special of a breed it is and why we're so lucky to get to work with them every day.
Well, the Thoroughbred is such an amazing creature. We've been highlighting them all week about their second careers, and we have found yet another former Breeders' Cup participant who is a pony horse. And believe it or not, it's in the barn of Michael McCarthy. Aren't you excited?
Yeah, very excited.
Tell us about your pony horse.
So this is Liam the Charmer. He ran from 3 to about 7. Actually ran in a Breeders' Cup at Churchill Downs. He's multiple graded stakes winner. Very kind, very good with the other horses here. You know, a lot of these athletes like him, they need something to do in the second stage of their lives after their racing career is over. He had a wonderful temperament. He's kind, he's smart. He actually enjoys his job. It took him a little while to settle into doing something like this, but he's been great. He's a big part of what we do. He's a pacifier for a lot of these fillies, as you just saw clearly on Hinge. Came back, and she goes with him every day. So he's a big part of the team.
You mentioned there was a little bit of an adjustment period for him. At what point did you start to think, I think this horse is going to make a good pony?
He actually had nearly a year off after his last start. At that stage, he was owned by Mataket and a few other people. And when his racing career was over, they were kind enough to give him to us, and we just took the time and got him what we call pony broke. And a couple of guys locally here got him squared away. And at first, he kind of, when we were breaking horses off to work for timed workouts and stuff, there were a few days where we'd look up and he wasn't far behind holding his own. But he's settled into his job now. We take him to the gate, we take him through the paddock, we take him everywhere. Obviously, you can see there's quite a few people here, and nothing phases him.
Oh, that's very cool. I appreciate the time today, Michael, like usual. And Liam the Charmer, yet another example of the diversity and versatility of the Thoroughbred.
And Kate and I love the events. In fact, there's a big one in Lexington where you get to see these horses in their second careers and what they're capable of. And we're also talking about them being civil servants. Some of them end up with police departments across the country.
It is amazing to see the many different jobs that racehorses can do outside of the racetrack. They are the most amazingly versatile animals I've ever seen. And, you know, when Mike was talking about it taking a little while, just think about what they're being asked to do. They've been trained their entire lives to do one thing, and that's go out and go as fast as you can in the afternoon and win races. And now suddenly we're saying, don't go fast. In fact, chill out and be a companion to somebody else so they can go out and run fast. And these are horses who are competitive by nature. I just think it's amazing. It never ceases to amaze how they can transition to so many different things. And that event that you talk about at the horse park in Lexington, Retired Racehorse Project, is an opportunity in a very short period of time to retrain a horse off the racetrack for another discipline. And the disciplines vary so dramatically, from dressage to field hunting and fox hunting to show horse and stadium jumping to trail riding, where they literally are going across barrels and water and hazards, and it's amazing to watch.
One of the most magnificent creatures on this earth, the Thoroughbred, and we are so fortunate to work around them each and every day. And you can see the best at 2 days of the Breeders' Cup. There are still tickets available. Future Stars Friday is tomorrow, and then 9 championship races on Saturday. Visit breederscup.com/tickets.
As horse racing's greatest take the stage at the Breeders' Cup, we're working to provide an ecosystem of care to keep these athletes safe. With comprehensive veterinary examinations starting weeks before entry, up until they leave the starting gate. With extensive racing, surface testing, and measurement protocols. New national uniform regulation and rigorous enforcement under the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority. And with the addition of advanced technology and new diagnostic tools, we're taking great and positive strides. But we are committed to doing much more. So no matter who wears the crown, safety runs first at the Breeders' Cup. To learn more, visit breederscup.com/safety.
This is a Kentucky Thoroughbred. This is a Kentucky-built powerfoil industrial fan. Like a thoroughbred, it too delivers unrivaled performance. And while they both run with purpose and pride, this one also runs to keep your workforce feeling cool and comfortable. Powerfoil, our best-selling big fan hands down. BigFans.com. Comfort without compromise.
A man, his tractor, and his family. These are the Upshaws. Though he goes by Shaw, which stands for skilled hands at work. From cutting hair and mowing grass to roasting marshmallows, he's got a grasp on what matters most. There's a story in every piece of land. Run with us on a John Deere tractor and start telling yours. John Deere is the official partner of the Breeders' Cup World Championships.
Welcome back to the Sportsbook Draft, where FanDuel's pick is in.
With the first pick in the 2023 Sportsbook Draft, FanDuel selects horse racing.
Brilliant pick, as FanDuel becomes the first and only sportsbook app where you can bet on horse racing. Just a savvy move by a savvy franchise.
New customers get a no-sweat bet on the Breeders' Cup up to $200.
It's like they know each other. What do you think Rob's saying to him right now? Probably something about oats.
Here with the Hall of Famer Roger Atfield, who has Sherrill Spite running in the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile. And Roger, going back a year ago, your horse ran so well in this race, second at 55-1, but he was only defeated 3/4 of a length. How did he pull off that feat?
Well, pretty simply, because he's a good horse. I mean, he's been overlooked so many places. I think he was, when he won the Maker's Mark, he was more in line 45-1 or something ridiculous. And you know, and he's run so many good races. I mean, you know, any race that he hasn't really shown too much in has been races he's got into trouble in, you know. And ran a great race in Dubai to be fourth there after doing the Japan thing and everything else. And, you know, he's a good horse. He's going to run well. If he gets a good trip, he'll run very, very well.
He had 8 starts last year. He's only had 4 races this year. Was that by design for you and your program to keep him fresher this year? It seems like it wasn't. You're shaking your head.
No, not at all. Going to Japan really messed his whole season up, to be really honest with you, because, you know, he would have been favourite or second favourite in the Pegasus, which was just down the road from where we train. But you know, his owner, he owns the horse, and, you know, he wanted to go and try the mile on the dirt, which really isn't his type of race. To go all the way to Japan to do it, it was pretty adventurous. And that was a very, very long trip for him, but he handled it super. And he went over from there to Dubai and ran a huge race there to be fourth. And he did get a great trip there either. And so then when he came back, we were going to give him a month anyway. And but the restrictions in Canada, you've got to be 2 months before you can get back into Canada. So we gave him another month. And I made a mistake there, really. Left him on the farm, and he just ate too much grass, and he was chubby as heck when he got up to Canada. And I've been behind the 8 ball all the way ever since then. And in fact, actually, I ran him in the King Edward in Canada, when he was only about 60-70% fit, because I wanted to get him to the mile at Woodbine, you know, and he ran a good race in there. But we've just been behind, you know, we've been behind all year with him, really, you know.
So how does he look now to you? Has he trimmed up and cut off some of that weight since the Woodbine Mile coming in here to the Breeders' Cup now?
Yeah, we've got him in pretty good shape right now, and I've been delighted the way he's trained here. His last work before he shipped to here was very, very good. And, yeah, I'm delighted with him right now.
Appreciate the time, Roger. Thank you so much. Good luck in the FanDuel Mile this year.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Roger Attfield, a treasure not just to Canadian racing, but to the sport overall. We're privileged to have him in North America. But when it comes to the Bee and Breeders' Cup, that could stand for Applebee. Let's go to Rishi.
Well, here is a trainer that whenever it comes to the Breeders' Cup, in fairness, most races, that big international contest, you have to respect. It is Charlie Appleby who's got an outstanding record at the Breeders' Cup. Just the 2 runners this year, Charlie. Both of them with chances, but obviously let's deal with Master of the Seas first of all, and an awkward draw in stall 14.
Yeah, I'm normally asking the stewards if I can have a late load, but I haven't got to worry about it. Drawn 14 and 14, I should have hopefully be last in. But look, the draw's a draw. As we know, the stats, people would tell me there's been 2 winners in the last 10 years coming from that stall, so we've got to hope that we can try and help that stat forward a bit. He's in great order. He ticks a lot of boxes coming into races. We know his experience over this side of the water. He won very well in Canada. He came out of that and put up a great performance there in the Coolmore as well, just getting touched off. So he shipped straight up from Keeneland to here. Everything's been great since he's been here. He's trained well, and just a draw, so we'll have to have a lot of lady luck with him, but he's a class horse and he travels, so that will help well around there, hopefully.
All in all, to get him back to where he is now, having missed all of that one run at Newmarket in 2022, it's been a remarkable comeback from the horse.
Yeah, look, we saw what sort of talent he had there. Obviously, he's got a bit of a habit of just getting touched off in Group 1s, unfortunately, as we saw there in the Guineas. Yeah, he's typical as a Debarwi, as we know. I keep repeating myself over that, but you give them that time and they will repay you. And like I say, what he's done so far, we're delighted, and hopefully we can add a bit more to it.
Can I just ask about how a lot of people obviously know that you're associated with Modern Games, who won the race last year. How would you compare the two? Would Modern Games? I mean, we kind of assume Modern Games would be at a slightly higher level, or would that be unfair to Master of the Seas?
You're right. He would be at a high level. As I said, coming into this, when you had the likes of Modern Games, if he'd been drawn 14 and 14, still wouldn't have worried me. With Master Seas, you're just that notch below, and so therefore ideally you just want to have a perfect trip round there. So having that lower draw would have enhanced his chances. That's the simple as the way I would have sort of analysed it. Like I say, Modern Games, rock solid. Park him up wherever you like, and he'll get the job done. Whereas Master, he will need to have, like I say, a lot of luck round there.
And with the Moonlight, now, I must admit, I've seen her in Dubai. I've seen her a few times around the world. But watching her this week, she's even stronger than I remember her.
Yeah, no, she's physically done very well. We gave her a nice break. She went to New York in the spring there, and unfortunately it was that time when they had those fires going on, and that they closed the track for a few days of training, and she had a couple of days of nasty scoping over there. So we brought her back, gave her a nice break, and she did well. She went to Canada, put up a good performance there on ground that wouldn't have suited her at all. It was unfortunately we turned up there and the clouds were following us around, and it was on this, it was yielding ground over there. Put up a solid performance, but back on a sound surface. Again, she's a player, but she's got a nice draw, got all the experience, so I'll be confident she'll actually run a big race.
Might this be her last run, or would she stay in training?
This will be her last run. Yeah, no, it was one of those decisions that we felt she deserved to come over here, and it would be her last run. So hopefully she's got nothing to lose and plenty to gain.
Charlie, as always, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck.
Brilliant. Thanks, Richie.
Thank you.
Oh, man.
Cheers, pal. Thank you.
Here, trainer Michael Stidham, he has Proxy in the Breeders' Cup Classic this year. His horse Proxy is just right behind us here in his stall. And Michael, he comes in here with the race record, 6 starts, 2 victories. But one of the main pieces of equipment that I guess has really turned his form around this year is what you're holding right here in your right hand. And these are cheek pieces that he's been wearing. For those that are not familiar, can you explain the difference between the blinkers that he wore as a 3-year-old? And I can take those blinkers right here, actually. We can give a good visual, a good idea here. Can you explain, say, a pair of blinkers that Proxy wore as a 3-year-old that didn't work, and now these cheek pieces that are really working for him?
So with the blinkers, it takes away like the peripheral view if you have like a 3/4 cup or a full cup, whereas the cheek pieces just attach to the head stall of the bridle, and they sit on the side of the face, and they're just basically taking away the rear view of the horse. So it's not quite as a claustrophobic feel to the horse. Some horses handle it well. We didn't feel like the blinkers really helped him. So then as a 5-year-old, we felt again, we needed to do something to try to keep him a little more focused forward. And we put on the cheek pieces in the morning. He seemed to work better in them. We tried them in the afternoon. And, you know, it's pretty much equated into better performance.
It was one of the decisions that I guess solidified it for you was his run here in the big cap, because he wasn't too far back early on, but in the big cap he really dropped far out of it and then came on with a nice run. After that race at Santa Anita, is that what made you decide, let's try something else?
That's exactly what we did. And we just felt like he was a horse that if he got down on the inside, he got a lot of kickback, he would kind of lose focus in the race. And we wanted something that might keep him a little bit more forward, a little more engaged, so he would, you know, have a chance at the end.
Really only one of his bad races this year came at Ellis Park. Did you and the team come up with any excuse what happened at Ellis?
Well, we knew exactly what happened that day. He was in the one hole. He got a ton of kickback in his face. He dropped way back in the race. And at that time, Ellis Park was a track that was favoring speed, and horses coming from that far back really had no chance. So we felt like that was the reason for his poor performance that day.
So do you have to be very thrilled? Outside draw, long run going into the first turn. How happy and satisfied are you with the draw now that you have in the Classic?
Well, when it came down to Proxy being the last horse to come out on the draw, and we had the 2 and the 13 left, all I said was, please don't give me the 2. And we got the 13, which, you know, you'd never really want to be on the far outside, but I would prefer the outside versus the inside.
Michael, appreciate the insight. Thank you so much for the time. Good luck in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, Todd, it's been the cheek pieces that have made all the difference for Proxy this year leading into the Breeders' Cup Classic.
And Proxy, another horse for Team Godolphin, who has made such great history here at the Breeders' Cup. This would be an upset. Does Proxy have it in him, in your opinion?
Well, I loved Proxy for a very long time, and continue to. And I'm thrilled that he got the outside post position. He will have to run his lifetime best. I guess you could argue that's true for everybody in this race, but he definitely has to show something just a little bit more than he's ever shown before, I think, to be able to win here. But he's a magnificent horse to watch, and I'm kind of rooting for him because there's a lot of connections with Mike Stidham and the team, and I also think that having come so close with some very nice horses along the way to have made it this far with the 5-year-old Proxy is quite an accomplishment in and of itself.
Proxy, one of your members of the field in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. A look out on this beautiful morning in Southern California at the San Gabriel Mountain Range. Preparations continue for the 40th edition of the Breeders' Cup.
Hey, so I found a betting system that's really working great for me.
So did I. What's yours?
I set up an hour-a-week time limit on FanDuel. I can also set up wager limits, so I only bet what I can afford, and betting stays fun.
Right.
So what's your system?
What's that?
Your system. What's your system? What is that?
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours.
FanDuel Casino has your chance at the #1 feeling, winning. Winning ranks higher than any other feeling, higher than number 30. Saying, I told you so.
Told you so.
Higher than number 89, the feeling of catching your car keys with one hand. And number 78, thinking it's Friday when it's really Saturday. New players get 50 chances at winning with their first deposit on FanDuel Casino.
I'm Mark, and I live in Vero Beach, Florida. My wife and I have 3 children. Ruth Ann and I like to hike. We eat healthy, we exercise. I noticed I wasn't as sharp as I used to be. My wife introduced me to Prevagen. So I said, yeah, I'll try it out. I noticed that I felt sharper. I felt like I was able to respond to things quicker. And I thought, yeah, it works for me.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
John Archie standing by. We're looking at Bright Work, and this is my favorite part of all Breeders' Cup. I saw it a few days ago. Every day after training, you give her a little flower.
Yeah, you know, she's a beautiful girl, and we love her very much. You know, my mom taught me to be a gentleman, and I love giving our little girls flowers. And you know, when I used to date, I give my wife flowers here and there too. So it's you know, you love them, and so it adds that final touch. You know, she's very special. So
now, you guys legitimately went to the store and bought her a pot of flowers, so you made sure to have one for every day, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So it started out in Saratoga. When we first got there, we had flowers hanging on our Saratoga barn, and so Daniel put out the flower and put it in her ear, and then it's been a tradition for her ever since. And
I love that. I think it's super sweet. She went to the gate to school today. To me, she looked good. What'd your brother say?
He said she's a professional, you know. She's very smart, very kind, you know. She's so obedient. She just does whatever the rider asks. In this case, my brother Daniel, and like I said, they have a very special bond. They spent all summer together, so he knows how to read her, and she knows how to read him, and I think that's a very good combination.
She did go with earplugs today. Are those something you guys use on race day? And if so, when do they come out?
We use them every day, and definitely on race day. We use them in the paddocks. Make sure that, you know, she's just muffles some of that, you know, spooky noises out. But it just keeps her calm, and probably keeps me more calm than anything else, you know. But I'm
going to look for some big green cords in your ears.
Yeah. No, we usually take them out right behind the gate. We tell the rider always take them out behind the gate. So when she's in there, she's 100% focused.
And do you feel like she's coming in as the underdog again? She's got the best body of work of any filly in this field.
Yeah, you know, it's been a story of hers every time we run. She's always been not the favorite and the underdog, and I like that. You know, last time we were the favorite, we didn't perform as well, so maybe that's a good sign.
All right, thank you so much for spending the time with us, guys. Bright Work, an absolute princess back here.
And as a Grade 1 winner, she's 12-1, standing in her way, obviously, on Future Stars Friday, is the shortest price morning line favorite of the 2 days, and that is Tamara. Is there any vulnerability to Tamara? Is it just the question of, okay, first time around 2 turns, so if they're going to beat her, this would be the day?
So there's the emotional part of this, and then there's the gambler's part of this, right? So from a gambler's perspective, you're never supposed to take a short price on a horse doing something they've never done before. Right. And she's never run a long distance around 2 turns. So from a gambler standpoint, I think you have to try to ask yourself those questions. You either have to just go all in and accept the fact that you've got a very short price and you're willing to risk it on those questions. Or so to me, she is vulnerable in that respect. From an emotional standpoint, you want to see her win because you know what her dam did and you know kind of what she means. She's one of the better stories of the Breeders' Cup. Right. So I'd love to see her run, but from a gambler's perspective, I'm probably going to try to beat her. And I'll be happy and applaud the victory if she proves me wrong in that respect. But, you know, the young horses can change so quickly. Yes. The other part of this is she has been really good through those 2 races. That's a fairly long, extended period of time that everything has gone right. So you're gambling on the fact that it's going to continue to go right, even as she's asked to do something different and face tougher horses than she's ever faced.
Well, and more horses, too.
Yep.
I mean, there's 12 other horses lining up against Tamara in the NetJets Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Joaquin?
Here, trainer Todd Fincher, who has Senior Buscador running in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And the reason we haven't had a chance to talk to Todd just yet is because you just got into town here in Southern California late last night. What sort of feedback has you and your team given you how Senior Buscador has been doing here at Santa Anita?
He's doing as good as he's done the entire year. So we're leading up to this race, probably all the screws tightened down as good as we can get them. And he's been, I've seen some video of him galloping, looks outstanding. Last couple days I haven't seen anything on social media, so not sure, just going by what my guys tell me, and everything's a go. Everything's 100% according to them, and I just got here this morning, and he looks great.
You've told me in the past when I've talked to you before some of his races that you said this is a horse that just has a lot of bad luck. What do you mean by that?
His entire life he's had weird injuries happen to him, stall injuries and just unfortunate things. And it's just, he's overcome so much. Just to be here is unbelievable. And hopefully he can show what he can really do. I think this is going to be his best race of the year.
What's his plan, at least for this morning? What's Senior Buscador planning on doing?
He's been going to the track every day, but today we gave him a walk day because we're going to school him in the paddock this afternoon. So he gets kind of a lax day today.
When you go back and you watch the film on some of his races, he won a stakes race at Del Mar, rallying from off the pace. But even his races in defeat, even when he's lost by 2, 3, 4 lengths, it still seems like he's trying his heart out down the stretch. Is that what you see when he runs, even in defeat?
He always gives us a good effort, always, even if he's not 100%. Just like when he won the San Diego, he wasn't in tip-top shape. I mean, he is in good shape, but he wasn't where he is now. So you know, in every race, you know, the pace makes a race, and with him, he needs a pace. And last time out, he ran, I thought, one of his best races here. You know, the track was super biased that day. It was wet. Everything on the lead kept going. Horses weren't passing horses. Horses weren't making up any links, and he made up 7 or 8 links on some good horses. So very proud of that. He also did some things he hadn't done before. Drop inside, go between horses, and he's going to need to do that to win the Classic, but I liked what I saw last time.
So it really just seems like he's a more versatile horse that has much more experience coming into really the biggest race of his career now.
Well, he's not really versatile. I wish he was.
But inside, outside, not running style, but can be placed at different locations.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to need to. You can't go 9 wide, give up 8 lengths out of the gate and go 9 wide and beat these kind of horses. But he's done it before, but not against these type of horses. So he's going to need to save a little ground this time.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks.
So for Senior Buscador and trainer Todd Fincher, it was truly a breakthrough moment at the Del Mar Summer Meet when they took the Grade 2 San Diego Handicap, the traditional prep leading to the FanDuel Pacific Classic. In the FanDuel Pacific Classic, he beat a little more than half the field home. But Simon suggested to us that race exposed that maybe he's not a 1.25 mile horse. Do you think, you know, let's set aside class for a moment and how the race sets up. What about this distance? Is this something you think Senior Buscador can handle?
I do. I don't know that he can win the race, but I think the distance wouldn't be what would be the compromising factor. I actually think that he is just fine at the 1.25 miles. I thought the circumstances contributed to that particular effort. And while he would probably surprise me if he jumps up and wins, it wouldn't surprise me completely. I think he's a really talented horse who, just for a lot of reasons, hasn't had the opportunity to expose that. I don't know if the pace sets up beautifully for him in this regard. There is pace in the race, there's no question. But to me, it's very targeted where the pace is, and he has to do his best running from off of it, I think. So I'm not sure he gets the ideal scenario, especially from post position 9, but I don't think it's the distance.
30 years ago at this very racetrack, it was the biggest upset in the history of the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. That was our Kong, as you heard, at 133 to 1. Senior Buscador sitting at 30 to 1 in the morning line, trying to pull off his own shocker. Michelle?
Okay, guys, I love to just walk up on people. It's Todd Pletcher standing in front of me, getting a suntan.
Yeah, feels great.
You like the vitamin D?
Yes, I do.
I want to know, what's the horse no one's asked you about this week?
I don't think they've asked me about any of ours.
Really? I know I hung out in your barn. I asked you about at least 2.
Who? Who'd you ask me?
I asked you about Up to the Mark and Fierceness.
Okay, fair enough.
And I talked to Aaron Wellman about Candied.
Okay.
And I talked to him about Locked.
You talked to him about this. No one's asked me.
Well, who's the horse you want to talk to me most about?
Oh, you know I can't pick favorites. I don't do that. But no, knock on wood, everything's going smoothly. Everyone seems to be training over the track pretty well. So hopefully we get some paddock schooling in today.
Ooh, it's busy yesterday.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, now it's just kind of waiting for the moment.
Tell me about Dreamlike, because this would be a big upset.
It would. Talented horse, not always totally focused on the task at hand. Hopefully we kind of learned something in his last race of how he wants to be ridden. I think we were asking him to stay a little too close to the pace in some of his other races, and I think he's appreciated just kind of, letting him settle and make a run.
Todd, do you seem disappointed that no one's bothering you as much? Are we ignoring you?
I think you're getting the wrong impression.
Oh, he's happy. That's why the smile was, right?
There you go.
He was very happy. All right, guys. We bugged Todd Pletcher. We talked about some of his horses. He feels good. Let's see who else we can find.
Hey, listen, I've said this, and again, once he's comfortable around you, he shows you that tremendous sense of humor that he has. One of the most successful trainers we've ever seen in the sport, and I think some people are intimidated by him, but that is the Todd Pletcher I certainly have gotten to know.
You know, I'm always taken by the idea that how accessible Todd Pletcher at the top of the game is to almost any reporter that comes by. And I think the same is true for the majority of trainers and horsemen that participate in this game. And I would suggest with the passing of Bobby Knight, who had a very different relationship with the press, that there is no other sport where the participants are as, especially when you look at them as coaches, as accommodating as horsemen are on the whole.
Yeah, to that point, with the passing of legendary basketball coach Bobby Knight at the age of 83 yesterday, Jay Privman, and by the way, I love Jay Privman in this. Yeah, I love Jay Privman in this reincarnation now that he's retired. You follow him on Twitter. He says exactly what you're thinking. But he recounted a story where he was covering the Kentucky Derby. D. Wayne Lucas was in that year, and he invited legendary coach Bob Knight out to the barn, and the media was all gathered there. And Jay Privman said, D. Wayne Lucas said, Coach Knight, there's the horses. And then he looked at the media and said, there's the horses' asses. Right there. And Bobby Knight loved that. The media loved it as well. Jay Privman, thank you for telling that story and adding to the remembrances of Bobby Knight. But D. Wayne Lucas was kind of the first one that, you know, you talk about accessibility, he still would kind of hold you to account with the questions that you'd ask.
He challenged the media.
Yeah.
And now is maybe a little kinder, gentler person, but still equally accessible and also equally cognizant of the importance of a relationship, whatever that looks like, with the media as a means of getting your message out and promoting both your sport and the sport as a whole. So, you know, I think that he took a lot from Bobby Knight, and they were actually very good friends. And of course, D. Wayne Lucas was a coach, a basketball coach. There's a lot of connections between basketball and horse racing. Even now, Scott Davenport, who is the coach at Bellarmine,
great catch, yeah, that's right,
was posting about Bobby Knight and what he did.
Speaking of their team, and they won a national championship in 2011. And then on that training,
Scott was by the way, just won a race at Horseshoe Indianapolis.
Yeah, he loves the sport.
That Dallas Stewart trained.
And on that training tree for D. Wayne Lucas is obviously Todd Pletcher. So he's learned some of his lessons. So there's Dreamlike, the horse that Michelle asked Todd Pletcher about in the Classic, but there's no doubt Fierceness, whom she had asked him about a couple days ago, his debut says he's good enough to win the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but how do you explain away the champagne last time out?
You know, I don't know, other than the fact that they're young horses and they change very quickly and they can have some disconcerting moments that become learning experiences. And I'm almost thinking that that may well be what happens with, and maybe it's the horse learning and maybe it's the people around him learning too. But in fairness, he did start in an awkward way. And then on a sloppy racetrack was, I thought, scrambling to try to just kind of figure out what he was supposed to do. And as a result, didn't run a step. But he's very fast naturally, and I think because of that, because of his raw natural speed, when you're set off your game, when you're taken out of your rhythm right off the bat like that, it is very disconcerting. Hopefully he doesn't get away like that this time in the Breeders' Cup, but also hopefully he's able to kind of settle and figure out that you need to run even if you're not on the lead and even if it's not the smoothest of starts. Fast track is going to be what's going to be intriguing to me. This will be the first opportunity for the son of City of Light to actually run on a true, dry, fast racetrack. But I think I believe that he's a lot better than what we saw in that debut.
Yeah, and I think the betting's going to go that way.
Stakes debut, I should say.
Yeah, he's 6-1 in the morning line. I think he's going to absolutely get bet down from that price. Looking more at Future Stars Friday, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Taking a look at one of the contenders out on the track right now. And we talked about No Name Mets and really the two horses that George Weaver will be sending out, No Name Mets and then the filly Crimson Advocate. Two great chances there. As far as amidst the waves, George Weaver has this one as well, who amongst the horses that he has in the race will definitely, in my opinion, be overlooked compared to No Name Mets and Crimson Advocate.
You know, this is another filly, which Crimson Advocate is a filly, but certainly hasn't accomplished what Crimson Advocate has accomplished. Crimson Advocate was able to win the Royal Palm, earn a trip to Royal Ascot, and win at Royal Ascot. So very different accomplishments amidst waves. Is coming off a second place finish in the Indian Summer, and to date biggest claim to fame would be winning the Bolton Landing, which was a little easier competition. It was a turf sprint though, and she does her best running sitting just off the early pace. 5 furlongs is going to be the deal breaker for some of these horses, but it's certainly going to help a few. I don't know if it helps amidst waves quite as much as some of the others in here.
Okay, we've been told there's a loose horse out on the track, so everyone out there needs to be cautious. We're going to take a short time out, be back with more breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
And the stage is set. Bright Work will make Ways and Means work. She is running on strongly. Ways and Means still a length back second. These two are dominating. Bright Work is a superstar.
You think life is short? Football is short. The regular season's just 18 weeks. That's it. So cherish every over and under before it's over on FanDuel. With live betting on every NFL game. Because before you know it, a cold night at a Buffalo Bills game will just be a cold night in Buffalo.
Bet $5, get $150 bonus if your team wins, plus a profit boost every single day. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Hey, so I found a betting system that's really working great for me.
So did I. What's yours?
I set up an hour-a-week time limit on FanDuel. I can also set up wager limits, so I only bet what I can afford, and betting stays fun.
Right.
So what's your system?
What's that?
Your system. What's your system? What is that?
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours.
Emirati Anna down toward the inside. Artemis City Limits is there. Highfield Princess. Golden Pal is still 6th. Caravel with Emirati Anna coming up the inside. Caravel leads it. Emirati Anna up the inside to challenge. Caravel, Emirati Anna. Creative Force runs on from 3rd. Caravel, Emirati Anna. Creative Force 3rd. Caravel and Tyler Gaffalione.
Welcome back to the breakfast show. If you guys would have told me this morning that I would get to wake up and give eyeball rubs to Caravel before her gallop, I wouldn't have believed you. I'm having a big fangirl moment right now. Obviously, fell in love with this girl last year at the Breeders' Cup, watching her torture TC Stevens in the morning because she could be quite a handful, but she was always so regal when she'd stand on the track. Obviously won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint at a huge price last year, coming in this year. Obviously, her last 2 efforts have been a bit disappointing, but we're going to attribute that to the soft turf. She is still the winner of the Grade 1 Jaipur. We have Brad and Blake Cox standing right behind us. They said, be careful, Caravel will strike at you. So I'm petting her with caution, but she seems to be enjoying the sunshine, and I'm just having a huge moment right now, Todd.
Oh, that is a beautiful sight. And then Brad Cox seems distracted. He's probably got another horse out on the track there. He's got to watch. I don't know how he gets in all the places that he needs to be.
So, you know, Andy makes a good point, and I think this has been a fascinating thing to watch with Caravel, having watched her over the arc of her career, even before she was in Brad Cox's barn. She started out as, I don't want to say nervous, but a filly who was very picky and finicky. She didn't always carry a lot of weight. She could occasionally get very washy and anxious before her races. And gradually over time, when Brad had her last year, she got better. But you heard Andy referring to her being a handful on the racetrack, and there was still a little bit of that tendency. This year, completely different. She's a seasoned pro. She doesn't get anxious. She's strong at times, but it's controlled energy. And they have equipped her with draw reins. We saw that earlier on Matarea. The draw reins for her especially, I think, are almost a security blanket for her. I really think she feels more comfortable when the rider has that leverage and can kind of put her into a frame rather than her having to think about this dynamic between rider and controlling energy and things like that. So I think it's been a big transformation for her. I also think that she's run against tougher horses since winning the Breeders' Cup than she did going into the Breeders' Cup, and that may in part have contributed to her record. More than that, though, both her efforts at Keeneland and Saratoga in her two most recent starts going into the Breeders' Cup were on less than firm ground, and that really was a big departure from the year before. I think it made a big difference. Firm ground is going to make a difference for her.
Well, some of the company you talked about, when she won the Jaipur, which Andy was talking about, she beat the boys, and one of those horses was Casa Creed. Casa Creed is going to go in the FanDuel Mile and would go on to be a Grade 1 winner yet again up at Saratoga. So you're absolutely right. At her best, she has no equal resume-wise in the race. What about the 5 furlongs? It was 5.5 last year. It would almost seem like a simple answer, but I think it's more nuanced than that. With the fact that she can get on or near the lead, you'd think 5 furlongs would be perfect, but this is such a different trip than the 5.5 at Keeneland. Are there any concerns there?
This becomes much more intense out of the gate and pace-wise across the board. Trip is everything. The fact that she draws to the inside, I think, is a real benefit for her because she doesn't have to worry quite as much about what happens to her outside. She's a pretty handy horse. You can see her here in the Franklin at Kentucky Downs.
Look at the going, yeah.
It was listed good. It was on the softer side of good for sure. This was the most moisture we had in the track the entire meet, and she struggles over it, but I thought she showed courage. I mean, this is just courage, hanging in there to still almost win the race, but she was never comfortable on the bridle, moving the way you expected a winner to move in that race that day. Totally different story on a firm turf course, I believe. I don't know, though, about the 5 furlongs, whether that helps her or hurts her. I can't answer that. I think, though, that she got the best of it as far as draw was concerned, given what her style is. But my hunch is that 5.5 would have been better.
Yeah, that's how I feel. When you use the perfect word there about a 5 furlong turf race, it's intense from beginning to end. There's not a whole lot of chance to relax and rate. Caravel, despite having won the race last year, is 5-1 in the morning line. Probably very close. You know, she'll get bet down maybe a little bit from there, but you're going to get a fair price on a horse who has already conquered this division, but now she's got to do it at Santa Anita at a different distance, and she is out on the track right now. And don't forget, with the change in the schedule this year, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint will be one of the 2 Breeders' Cup races that will be run on Saturday following the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. Normally the Classic would be the end of the card. Instead, it's going to be the Sprint, and that would be on the dirt, and then the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint included in that as well. Caravel.
Could she be prettier?
That's what I was going to say. She's winning that part of the contest for sure, and going very handily down here. Maybe It was those eyeball rubs from Andy. All right, Pretty Mischievous goes in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff, 3-year-old filly. She's going to be named at the Eclipse Awards the best 3-year-old filly. She's the Kentucky Oaks winner. She's added a number of grade 1s since then, but she is coming off a defeat. Simon Bray, when he was with us, was indicating ultimately this might be his selection in this race, despite some really good older horses like Idiomatic.
I give her a big chance in here. I don't know if I can pull the trigger and put her on top in my selections, but do not leave her out. She is a horse that I think absolutely has to be included in the discussion. And if you ask me, how is she coming into this race, I would say she is flourishing. I really believe she's doing better than she's ever done at any point this year, and that's saying a lot since she won the Kentucky Oaks.
Well, normally we're talking to Brendan Walsh standing on his 2 feet, but he's got 4 legs working for him. That's Brendan Walsh right next to Pretty Mischievous. He's on the pony horse, guiding Pretty Mischievous out there. Daughter of Into Mischief, out of the Tappan Mare, Pretty City Dancer. Godolphin Blue represented everywhere at the Breeders' Cup, and they look for a lot of success this time around, and they are in a lot of key races over the 14 championship races. Pretty Mischievous amongst them here in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. She's waiting patiently.
I think he might be on the pony just so he can get away from everything else that's happening and just escape on the racetrack.
I don't think Aiden O'Brien wants to be on a pony because that means he gets to talk to Rishi Prasad.
Not entirely certain that's the greatest joy of being at the Breeders' Cup for Aiden O'Brien. He's just been in to have breakfast. Anything nice in there, Aiden, that you recommend?
That was beautiful. Everything about it was lovely. Yeah, scrambled egg. Yeah, so I know it was all lovely.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm desperate. I'm starving. But I'd rather chat to you, Aiden, about your runners coming up this weekend. Now, if you don't mind, we'll just spin through them, and starting with the 2-year-olds who run on Friday, Future Stars Friday. Cherry Blossom, who runs in the sprint. What are her chances?
Yeah, she's fast filly. We wasn't really getting 6 at home. We think the flat track will suit her. She's drawn, I think, 8. She's drawn out a little bit, but a lot of speed. We think the track, a trip, ground should all suit her well, so hopefully she'll run a good race.
Another filly who's running is Content, who runs in the fillies Juvenile Turf. Now, at least she's one of the horses in the race that's proven at the trip.
Yeah, she will definitely get the trip. The fast ground should suit her better. She has a nice draw. Ryan will probably take his time on her and probably ride her for a little bit of luck. She needs to relax a little bit early and then she'll come home. Her 2 runs before she won her Group 3, she was a little bit keen. So he'll probably take his time on her and hopefully she'll run well as well.
In the Juvenile Turf, you've obviously got 3 in there. Ryan on River Tiber, Frankie on Unquestionable, and Mountain Bear as well. Is it a surprise to you, the jockey bookings, or is that something that you'd planned and you left to Ryan?
Yeah, no, look, obviously we always thought River Tiber was a very good horse. His last 2 runs were a little bit below par. In France, he had a break before and he wasn't maybe 100%, and then the last day we felt that we didn't have him at his best either. So we think he has came right since Newmarket. I think he's rated 3 pounds below the other horse, but he was always a very classy horse, and like I say, we think he's better now than he was for his last 2 runs. Maybe all the ducks weren't in a row 100% the last time.
And would it be fair to say that stepping up to a mile here would be ideal for him to at least try the perfect opportunity to try it?
Yeah, no, listen, obviously it was the middle park the last time, but we didn't think it was the trip. But we always thought that he would love stepping up to 7. So if we thought he'd get 7 at home, he should get a mile around here. He's a nice straw at a flat track. So looking forward to see what he does.
And Unquestionable, I thought he ran a terrific race behind Rosalian, and that looks to be very good form, considering what that horse did in France.
Yeah, Ryan was delighted with him in France, and he said the split just came a little bit too early for him and he had to go early. Obviously, when the split came, he had to go, and he just felt he'd have preferred to wait a little bit longer, but ran a very good race. Obviously, the same we always thought he would have a mile would be well within his compass. He's in good form as well, and nice straw as well. So, happy with him as well.
Just been through the horses on Saturday. Aesop's Fable is a horse that looks to be blossoming. A terrific run in the Abbey.
Yes, the time Ryan rode him before the Abbey, he said this horse is just stuck in second gear. He's not doing a stroke. He said he's just going along cruising along. We put the blinkers on him at home. Seamus jumped him out of the stalls and blinkers, and he just said he felt a totally different horse. Dean said the same when he rode him work. He was totally changed. So obviously that's why the blinkers are on him. Ryan felt in France, if he had have challenged the winner a little bit early, he might have been even closer. But it was a huge run out of him. Obviously back to what he was best of his 2-year-old form, and probably even above it. So looking forward to seeing what he does. I think he's drawn out a little bit, but there's speed on his inside, so he'll slot in and see what will happen.
In the filly and mare turf, Warm Heart, who's had a fabulous season, she's asked to drop back in distance, and obviously the wins in the Vermeer and of course the Yorkshire Oaks have come over further. How confident are you that she could deliver her best over this 10 furlongs here at Santa Anita? Yeah,
she's a nice draw. She will go forward. She is tactical early. She has speed and does get the trip very well. So I'd imagine she's a good draw. Brian will probably go forward on her, and probably whatever come and beat her will have to get the trip well. I'd say he'd probably go early on her, and she does get it well, and she doesn't lie down. She does fight.
And then we saved what I consider to be the best of yours for last. And obviously there's Bolshoi Ballo and Broom in there, but the horse that everybody's most interested in is Auguste Rodin. How has he taken to surroundings here? Are you happy with everything that he's showing you this week, that he's ready to produce his absolute best?
Yeah, no, we're very happy. Rachel Odom this morning is very happy. He's a lovely, good moving, long striding horse. He went around on the dirt with the rest of them this morning. He cruised around there, so we've been looking forward to him. The plan was always that he would go to Leopardstown and come here. We were always hoping for nice ground, a flat track, a classy type of track, so this is where he was always going to come, and this is what we've been looking forward to all year. Obviously he's won 2 derbies in the Champion Stakes, and he's only a 3-year-old, but and really has done well since Leopardstown.
I just wanted to ask about the tactics that Ryan might deploy in the race, because watching obviously the Derby, he's shown a lot of speed and stamina at the end, but then in the Irish Champion Stakes he was given an aggressive ride and he responded all the way. Would you imagine, given the nature and the sharpness of this track, that Ryan would be doing something similar in terms of the aggression and how he conducts the ride?
Yeah, I would say he'll go forward. Obviously Leopardstown was tight around the inside track on fast ground, and he went forward after the pace. Obviously Luxembourg was in the race, and he considered that he was one of his big dangers. I would imagine he won't be dropping him out too much. He's professional now, and he's a nice draw. I'd imagine he'll go forward and might be forward, so he'll let him find himself. Obviously if there's horses in front of him, that won't bother him, but I'd say he'll ride it as he finds it, but he's in good order, we think.
The last Derby winner, well, the only Derby winner to win in the Breeders' Cup, has been High Chaparral, and he did it here as well in that amazing race. When you come back to Santa Anita, do you have time to reflect on some of the great memories down the years?
Yes, obviously.
There are a lot of them.
Yeah, well, obviously it's unbelievable when you think back, and but we don't ever look back too much, really. Obviously, this is a new year, new day, new everything. So take it as it comes, and try and make some of the right decisions, and hopefully some of it works.
Talking about reflecting, I know you say you don't want to, I just wanted to ask you about one horse who sadly is not here, but an opportunity, a few people have asked about Paddington, an opportunity to reflect on what has been an incredible season for a horse who started off by winning a handicap and then 4 Group 1s. Shame he couldn't be here, but your opportunity to pay some tribute to what he did on the track this season.
Yeah, sure, listen, he was an incredible horse. Like, obviously he got pushed to the front line all the time through the whole year. He was only a baby 3-year-old, and we sent him out to compete in all the top races, race after race. I think he won 6 races, 4 Group 1s in something like 60 days or something. It was just incredible, and he never lay down once. Incredible horse. Just so lucky to have him, and like obviously there is a time when you have to say, listen, you've done enough, and like we owe you more than he owes us, so, and that was the time. Listen, we've never seen anything like him. He had great tactical speed. He was very tough, very aggressive, never lay down no matter what. He came out that box bucking every morning, so we just felt to like we had to be very respectful to him, what he did, and he deserved to go off the stud. And listen, the whole world was looking for him at stud, and I think in all fairness we never campaigned a horse as aggressively as we did him, and he kept answering, so incredible to have him, really.
The last thing is, you're wearing this jacket here. I mentioned it at the start of the show. It's got Justify on it. And for people in America, the significance of Justify siring, of course, the mighty city of Troy. How much are you how much are you appreciating the talents of Justify in the breeding show?
Yeah, it's just something like we've never seen before. Like, obviously our best colt is by Justify, City of Troy, and our best filly is by Justify, filly won in France. So it's upper singer, which is incredible. They're tactically quick. They stay very well. They're big strides, very genuine. Like, we think they're so exciting, and they're going to go on the dirt as the same as they're going to go on grass. It's something like we've never seen before. I remember when we saw Justify, he was like a big sprinter, and he obviously got 1.5 miles. But obviously John wanted him straight away the minute he saw him, and he saw, and his bar is always classic blood, and classic blood, they have to be able to sprint and they have to be able to stay. So he felt he was so unique that we had to have him, and obviously how right he was. You know, it's so exciting for us that we have a horse that can run on the grass and switch to the dirt straight away at any time. So it's incredible, really. We never thought it could happen, but going forward, listen, we're dreaming.
Exciting times. Aiden, can I just say thank you so much for sparing the time. And I'm going to take some of your recommendations for breakfast. I'm going to head off there now. Hopefully you'll be able to enjoy a little bit more of the remainder of the day.
Yeah, appreciate it, Rishi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, yeah. Happy.
Caton, just as someone who obviously makes his living in the industry, as do you, I'm so appreciative when Aiden O'Brien and Coolmore support this event, the way Godolphin supports this event as well. I think sometimes the international racing community understands we're in the same ecosystem better here in the States, because a lot of times we can't get the East Coast to cooperate with the West, or all of us to get together and realize we benefit when we work together. But the Breeders' Cup, the support of Aiden O'Brien, of Coolmore, of Godolphin, shows that they understand that a healthy racing industry is not just relegated to one part of the world. We've got to work together to make it happen. So supporting this event is their way of doing it.
I think there has been a real transformation and change in the attitude toward the Breeders' Cup from international connections on the whole. Now, in the beginning, it was one of many big races that were interesting, and you would have occasional participation, few horsemen who felt that they had horses that might do, and they did, and so they looked at it as any other event. You take opportunities when they come up. Now it's become something that horsemen overseas point for as much. It's not bring one horse, it's bring as many horses as you possibly can that can make it into the body of the races. And I think it's both a testament to their openness, open-mindedness, to look at our event and jump in there, but also to the Breeders' Cup for designing a program and tweaking it and changing it along the way that would be attractive and give opportunity to more European connections.
Yeah, the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series being a big part of that. So much better when we work together. I know that's an obvious statement, but the industry sometimes misses that. Not here at the Breeders' Cup. Everyone gets it. Michelle?
Well, guys, I'm at the barn of Peter Urton. We talked to him about some of his juveniles, but he's also got an elder statesman coming in the Breeders' Cup Exalted. He's actually walking behind me right now. And, Pete, I was told in order to get you to talk, I had to give you a cookie. Is that true? What's the cookie deal?
Well, it's just something we've done for a long time. They really do enjoy these. They used to make them really too molassesy, where they were really soft, and now they're just like hard as a rock, aren't they?
It smells like an oatmeal cookie.
It is, pretty much, yeah.
I'll taste it. What's it taste like?
You're not gonna break it, it'll break your teeth.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're very hard. And once they crack it, then they're hooked.
It's actually tasty, though. Like, when you taste it, it doesn't taste bad. It tastes very sweet. All right, I want to talk about Exalted. We've already talked about your juveniles. What took you so long to put him on the grass?
You know, probably because he wasn't doing bad on the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at him, he doesn't really look like a typical turf horse, you know. He's Scopian, that means, and he does have a sire line of, you know, Twirling Candy, who throws a lot of turf horses. But this year I just said, you know what, he's just not finishing, and we decided we'd give him a try in a first condition allowance race, and he won it, and so then it was his history after that. Just keep boom, 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 boom.
Now, he is coming off a runner-up effort last time out, but does that give you a little bit of relief almost? Because all horses, I feel like, have to hit a pinnacle and then, you know, come back down a touch before they can go back up.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can give him an excuse. He's a big horse. He needs to keep his momentum going. And he was kind of like locked in there on the inside and didn't really have anywhere to go. But I'm totally happy with him not running his best race prior to
Pete, what do you think is part of the the really good thing with you at your barn, where you get these older horses and they just seem to flourish in these later years? Is it something that's part of your program? Is it just that your owners are really patient and willing to leave horses around for a long time? I mean, you don't just go through 2-year-olds and then we never see them again. We have horses that we get to follow for extended periods of time.
Well, I think a lot of it's got to do with the patience of the owner. They will listen, and when the horse does have something minor, and instead of trying to push him through it, they're willing to give the time. And that's the only way you're going to with a 6 or 7 or an 8-year-old. I mean, Exaltation is going to be turning 9, and he's still running 90-some buyers, sprinting no less, and that feels pretty good.
And going into the Breeders' Cup Mile, what are your thoughts about the field that's assembled against Exalted, and does he have anything left to prove to you?
Nothing for me to prove, but I think it would be fun to see him taking on the best. And I'd love his outside draw. I don't have a problem with the 12. I think he's fast enough to get himself a position, a few lengths off the lead. If he wants it, he could send and be on the lead. But I see a bit of speed in there, and I think hopefully he gets the trip, because I think that's what it's all about on grass, is trips half the time.
If he wins, is it cookies or carrots?
He tends to like carrots better than cookies, to be totally frank.
All right, carrots need to be coming towards Exalted. Thanks for the time, Pete.
Thank you. Anytime.
Guys?
Yeah, in some spots we've seen some carrot buffets set up along the rail. A lot of these horses, good doers, as they say in the sport. And, Pete referencing the outside there on the turf, he wasn't concerned about post 12. I remember when Lure was here, he broke from an outside post. He was a different horse in that Lure would get out there and go to the lead. But it is a fantastic renewal of the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile. Best story last year. Yes, Flightline was the star of stars at the Breeders' Cup. But the best story was the win by Cody's Wish, and the young man who he is so linked to, Cody Dorman, who was there to see Cody's Wish win the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile.
Last night the National Turf Writers and Broadcasters had their annual awards dinner, and Team Cody's Wish was honored, and the entire team was there, from Bill Mott and his team, Junior Alvarado, his agent, the team from Godolphin, as well as Cody Dorman and his family were all there. And it continues to be one of those gifts to all of us that keeps giving, regardless of what happens to this incredible animal on the racetrack. He has just done something amazing to touch so many lives in the way that he has. And that's what Cody's father echoed in his speech. But at the end, we got some direct words from Cody. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house, I can tell you that. But it also was a reminder of what we love most about this game. And that is the ability of a horse to touch your soul.
Oh, exactly. Such a healing animal in each and every day. Cody's Wish out on the track. And here's some of what you were talking about with Cody Dorman being here. And this is Byron King putting this out on social media on behalf of Blood Horse. And, just thinking of where Cody Dorman has gone. First of all, the connection with Cody's Wish, but Cody's Wish has taken them to some pretty remarkable places he wouldn't have gone to otherwise.
Well, Cody's father mentioned last night that a little over a year ago, he had never been on an airplane.
Wow.
And now they have traveled. They were in California last night, but he spoke to, he said when that horse put his nose in Cody's lap, we never could have imagined what would transpire. The win last year was sort of the pinnacle, but the fact that the horse has come back this year and win, lose, or draw in the Breeders' Cup continues to keep that dream alive and that momentum and that hope. And the story continuing. Cody's father spoke of the fact that it wasn't just the horse, it was also the people surrounding the horse and how welcoming the racing community has been to him and his family. And I do think that is one of our strengths, is our ability to welcome in anybody that wants to come see what we love so much, but then also share in the idea of how much magic a horse can wish. Now, talking to Bill about Cody's Wish, I sense a little bit more nervousness than is usually attached to a Hall of Famer.
Right.
I mean, there's always a certain amount of nervousness. You worry about everything. But I feel like he feels a little extra responsibility with this horse because of the story and because of all who are connected to him. And Cody's Wish looks tremendous, but he was very strong yesterday. When I saw Bill after the workout session at the breakfast, he said he's a little strong, and he said you know, you want them to feel good, but you don't want to do too much. And I think that there'll be a little bit of sleeplessness up until this race is run over this horse, but the horse looks great. He is training strongly today, a different kind of a work, definitely reserved. They're definitely trying to conserve him and keep him in that nice frame going into the race. The key for Cody's Wish, as far as race tactics are concerned, is to get out of the gate, because this is a different kind of a race than it was last year at Keeneland, given the configuration, given this track and how it plays. You don't want to lose anything at the start. I think it's interesting that the horse that Cody's Wish came from off the pace to run down and beat by a pretty narrow margin with Cyberknife, with Florent Giroux on board, and for Brad Cox. The same scenario exists potentially in this year's Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, because he will be aboard Zozos, who looks as if he will be the horse that Cody could be trying to run down. So getting out of the gate is going to be key.
There are many events that are tied around the Breeders' Cup because everybody gets together in one spot. That doesn't always happen throughout the year. So you mentioned the National Turf Riders and Broadcasters dinner last night. The Jim McKay Award, which is a very prestigious award, went to Kenny Rice, whom you and I know very well, and we were so happy for him.
He gave a wonderful speech. Everyone did last night. It was truly a night to celebrate. And he talked about Kenny Rice, a guy from Kentucky, as down to earth now as he's ever been, but he did take the moment. He said, I'm always good for 30 seconds on air. I always do my 30-second sound bites. He said, I'm going to make up for it last night. And he told some wonderful stories, and it was just a tremendous night. Also, I think Dave Grenig from Daily Racing Form posted some video from the evening. I believe that includes Cody's message to all of us that night. So that's something to take a look at on social media as well.
Well, it's been 10 days of breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, and it's going to come down to 10 minutes after this short timeout. But a reminder, it's 40 days of giving to celebrate the 40th edition of the Breeders' Cup. And with this 40th edition, Breeders' Cup's 40 Days of Giving will benefit 11 thoroughbred charities and remains open through Saturday. A $40,000 match donation from the Breeders' Cup and Ken Freirich's Better World Records is open now. To participate and to support, visit breederscup.com/giving. It's 40 Days of Giving with the 40th edition of the Breeders' Cup coming up tomorrow here at San Anito. We'll be back.
Your brain is an amazing thing, but as you get older, it naturally begins to change, causing a lack of sharpness or even trouble with recall. Thankfully, the breakthrough in Prevagen helps your brain and actually improves memory. The secret is an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
At Calumet Farm, we're proud to offer proven stallions to fit every breeder's needs. With over 72 million in progeny winnings on dirt and turf, our diverse roster is producing the champions of today and tomorrow. Calumet Farm, a legacy reborn.
With NetJets, travel will always be personal. We do everything it takes to make every flight exceptional. Every single detail of your experience is personalized, just for you. As our standard is not just to meet our definition of perfection, it's to exceed yours.
the Met win.
Antiva, they win the Bet Parks Pennsylvania Derbies.
Wicked Halo, who wins the Raven Run Stakes. Nobody catching Society.
Red Route 1. Cyberknight has won the Pascal over Tava and Gunna in the Forgo.
Echo Zulu wins the Next Gen Breeders' Cup Juvenile Series.
Welcome back to the Sportsbook Draft, where FanDuel's pick is in.
With the first pick in the 2023 Sportsbook Draft, FanDuel selects horse racing.
Brilliant pick, as FanDuel becomes the first and only sportsbook app where you can bet on horse racing.
Just a savvy move by a savvy franchise. New customers get a no-sweat bet on the Breeders' Cup up to $200.
It's like they know each other.
What do you think Rob's saying to him right now?
Probably something about oats.
The Best 2-Year-Old by legendary sire Quality Road.
Hit about $1.5 million.
Very, very impressive debut. Cantering home. Could not have been more impressive.
Coast to coast in the American Pharaoh. He's the real deal.
Undefeated and unchallenged at 2.
He's just too good. He wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Corniche.
American Pharaoh, I felt like, was horse racing in 2015. He brought a nation behind him. He had so many fans from not only the United States, but across the globe. And to win the Triple Crown, it just had everyone tuned in to horse racing.
American Pharaoh is finally the one!
I think the entire Breeders' Cup Day, everyone was waiting to see American Pharaoh run. There was a buzz in the air.
They're off in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and American Pharaoh bounds right to the front.
He broke well, and he was sitting beautiful right at the front. When he was coming down the stretch, I mean, he was so loud, unlike any environment you've seen in horse racing in a very, very long time, if ever.
And now Victor Espinosa starts to pump on him and says, let's go. And they're all put to full-out drives, and American Pharaoh is getting away, and they're into the stretch.
What a call that was. It was one of the best calls in horse racing.
American Pharaoh comes into his final furlong, and he's got a 6-length lead as they come to the wire. A Triple Crown winner, a Breeders' Cup winner, a horse of a lifetime.
What a final send-off. What a way to end an incredible career. Just myself growing up, watching horse racing, loving the sport, to see the first Triple Crown winner in 37 years come back after a grueling campaign and win the Breeders' Cup, completed the Grand Slam. It was just a special, special year and a horse of a lifetime.
Alex Bregman, all-star third baseman for the Houston Astros, and he's in this year's Breeders' Cup with no-name Mets on Future Stars Friday in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. A reminder, it's the 2 best days in racing to play, and FanDuel Racing is going to take care of you. New customers can bet the Breeders' Cup with a no-sweat win bet up to $200 on FanDuel Racing. That's up to $200 back if you don't win your first single horse win bet. Just place your first win bet on a single horse in any race and get up to $200 back as a racing bonus if you don't win. Go to FanDuel Racing for details. And then as a FanDuel Racing account holder, you can play the Breeders' Cup with WinBet Insurance, and that's all races at Santa Anita. Remember, there's 14 championship races over 2 days. We're talking about the undercard leading up to that, a couple races after, and we're also talking about the Thursday card. They have racing scheduled here today, an 8-race card that will start later this afternoon at 1 o'clock Pacific time. One more segment remaining on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. We'll be back right after this.
Gunrunner sold the session-topping filly at the Saratoga sale for $1 million. The momentum continued on to Keeneland September, where hip number 391 sold for $1.25 million. Hip number 222 sold for $1.2 million. And hip number 614 sold for $1.15 million. Look for Weanlings by Gunrunner at the upcoming November sales.
Hey, so I found a betting system that's really working great for me.
So did I. What's yours?
I set up an hour-a-week time limit on FanDuel, I can also set up wager limits, so I only bet what I can afford, and betting stays fun.
Right.
So what's your system?
What's that?
Your system. What's your system? What is that?
Every bettor has a system. Make FanDuel's responsible gaming tools a key part of yours.
FanDuel Casino has your chance at the #1 feeling, winning, which ranks even higher than the 18th best feeling, saving a kid from a well. 59 years later. Find the #1 feeling winning on FanDuel Casino Reward Machine. Free to play every day with a chance at a $2,000 top prize.
Eclipse champion Blade, a proven sire with over 15% lifetime stakes horses. And in the sales ring, Blame continues to prove his value.
Now 50, 550, 550,000.
I'm at 85, 85, 85, 485,000. Thank you.
310,000 upstairs. His stakes-producing daughters include the dam of Eclipse champion Forte.
Forte to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Blade, standing at Claiborne Farm.
It was so awesome to have a chance to interview people around Flightline because they were like, look, we really think that there is potential for this horse and, you know, people will maybe never see anything like it. This is a once in a lifetime thing. So I still get chills when I think about Flightline because what people were saying early on is we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but this horse could really blow people's minds. The buzz leading up to the Breeders' Cup, it was like everywhere. You know, and everywhere that you can get sports information. So that's when I knew. I knew, like, okay, this is a big deal. This is a really big deal.
They're off in the 39th Breeders' Cup Classic.
The gates opened. I could see it on the screen. I could see it from a distance, right, in person. And I'm like, all right, I just want to pay attention in every way possible to where Flightline is.
Let's check out this half mile. It's going to be quick. It was 45.47 seconds. Life is good up the backstretch in front by 2. Flightline continues to sit second up the backstretch under a patient Flavia Pratt.
There are so many limited things in life that really play out the way that you think, especially when it's greatness involved. And I can't even talk now. I have goosebumps everywhere. But that's what I felt. It was like, how lucky am I to even watch this in person?
Flightline now beginning to move on the outside. Life is good by a length.
You see it, but you also hear it and you feel it and you smell it, right? This sport can do that. And feeling the horses like pounding down the stretch, but Flightline was so far ahead at that point that it's like, oh my God.
And Flightline takes off! Flightline has gone right by Life is Good and comes into the final furlong with a 3-length lead. Life is Good trying to claim the second. Taba is third, down to the 16th pole. It is Flightline. It is mind-tingling, jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, Secretariat-like Breeders' Cup Classic win.
Watching Flightline really doing exactly what people did expect was so shocking. I started crying because I'm just like, that's what sports is about. I mean, it's Wayne Gretzky, it's Tom Brady, it's the horse that's special.
So we go from the dominance of Flightline. If you look at recent history in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, there has been that one horse who just towers over the field, Gunrunner, Knicks Go, Flightline. Not this year. It is a wide open Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. Do you have your pick yet?
I think this is what makes it so special, but I think I'm going to just go with the horse that brought me here. All along, White Barrio has been most intriguing to me from about middle of the season. There are other horses that I think are really talented, but he always had the wow factor, the it factor for me, even going into the Whitney. And I think his story is pretty compelling too, because he hasn't been necessarily taking the easiest route to get to this point, but he continues to train really well, and he's trained by a man who missed 10 years in the game and waited it out just to have the opportunity to come back and do what he loves to do the most and what he's always done. To have a chance at Breeders' Cup Classic glory, I think, is quite the story.
Hey, babe. Rick Dutrow. What are the many stories?
I am happy to have him back.
Okay, I am happy to be doing this show, even when it has obviously been a difficult week. There have been some storylines we wish we never had to cover leading into the Breeders' Cup. But the truth remains that horse racing and the racetrack is a microcosm of life. You never know what's going to happen when you're out there. But this show, more than any other show in sports, shows in an unflinching manner the compassion in horse racing, the hard work, the dedication, the ups and downs. You know, in football, they have the Hard Knocks series, which looks at a team, but that's edited. This is not. Every morning we have been here for 10 days. It is a privilege to be with you always, but especially I learned from you, Rishi Prasad, Michelle Yu, a force of nature. These shows are important because our industry more than ever needs to be transparent about how the mornings lead to the afternoons.
I couldn't have said it better. It is a game of triumph and tragedy, of highs and lows, but at the end of the day, it's a game of hope for everyone. And a privilege to be here every day, to witness the hard work that goes into this from the crew, as well as from all that are associated with this and the horsemen. I hope everyone has a safe and happy Breeders' Cup.
It is a game we love, and we hope you will love it too. 2 championship days of racing about to take place at Santa Anita, hosting the Breeders' Cup World Championships for a record 11th time. Future Stars Friday coming up, and that will have 5 Breeders' Cup races, and then on Saturday, 9 championship races. It is a true privilege to say goodbye for the final time this year from Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. I'm Todd Schrupp.